And we're live. So let me see if we get the camera on me. Hey guys, and welcome to the first ever, test episode of Digital Classroom. My name is Frank Dorhoff, and I will be guiding you through different light setups, techniques, and everything else you can encounter during a photo shoot in our studio in Emmeloord. Now, what is the Digital Classroom? I have to explain that to you guys. I've been teaching workshops for a long, long time, and I do a lot of webinars also for guys like DxO, for X-Rite, for MacFun, and you can go on and on and on. Everybody's doing web podcasts and video web podcasts, right? The problem is there's a distinct difference between a workshop and a webinar. A webinar is 1 hour, very intense, and you go through all the stuff. And a workshop is more a one-on-one experience. So we always work with small groups, like 5, 6, maximum of 12 people. And you can really work together. But there's a big gap in between a webinar and a workshop. And that gap I want to fill with Digital Classroom. And this has been a dream for me for many years. But to get it running and to get it up, we needed help. And we got the help from 2 partners already, BenQ and Rogue, Expo Imaging, the flash benders, you know, and of course Elinchrom is helping us out too. Now, thanks to those partners, it's now possible to create something we are calling Learning with Frank Dorhoff. And Digital Classroom is one part of that. Now, this is a test episode, meaning this is not episode 1. This is the test episode. We're testing everything in the studio. And of course, we can do that without you guys watching. But the fun part is we want to do it with you guys watching, because then, well, you can see me fail if something goes wrong. And we are renting space at the moment via satellite to get you a really good upstream. And we are just hoping that everything will stay working. Now, if something doesn't work, give us a tweet. You can find the hashtag on my website, Digital Classroom. And of course, make sure that we know if something goes wrong. Now, we're doing this via Google Hangouts and via YouTube online, so everybody should be able to watch. And if I'm correct, it's also being recorded for later watching. So the technique, Anna Week is behind the cameras, and we have different camera angles. So you can see all the stuff live and from different angles. We have Brian, my son, behind the computer, who does all the fancy switching because he loves doing stuff with switching. And we have 2 assistants, and of course we have a model. Now, the most important thing during a photo shoot, of course, is your model. You have to make sure that your model feels at ease. So that's why the model is not here at the moment. But I think it would be wise if I pick her up, right? Yeah, I think so. So, Brian, can you switch to our makeup room and see if our model is ready? So I will walk there and pick Rosa up. So we're now switching cameras to our makeup room, and I have to walk a little bit because it's not close to our studio space. Hello, Rosa. How are you? Are you almost ready?
Yeah, almost.
You're almost ready?
Yeah.
So as soon as you're ready, you can join us in the studio, and we'll make sure that you have a great photo shoot today.
Okay.
So, and we already work together, right? So we know each other. And well, if you're ready, just join us in the studio.
Yes.
So take your time. Okay. So that was Rosa, our model. And as you can see, she's now making up. And during the normal episodes of the Digital Classroom, we will actually be using also styling from Nadine, or we'll do different stuff with makeup and show you guys this. But in this episode, we just want to test if all the hardware works and the upstream works and the Q&A works. Now, about that Q&A, if you're watching via Google, you can actually use the Q&A and ask questions. Now, if you have a problem with something, for example, lighting, ask the question. If you want to know what I'm doing, ask a question. You can also do it via Twitter. Just use my Twitter name, Frank Dorhoff, and I will respond to the questions if they come in. So here we have Rosa. Hello, Rosa.
Hi.
So the first thing I always do is I get familiar with the model. I will always say, hi, I'm Frank.
Hi. Rosa.
You're Rosa. So that's the first thing. Make sure that the model is at ease. Now, a lot of people ask me about how can I set up certain light setups? Like, how can I create extra dimensional lighting? Now, what is extra dimensional lighting? A lot of lighting is very flat. For example, big softboxes, you just aim it at your model and you shoot. That's the most easiest thing, right? But you want something extra. You want a little bit of spice in your shoot. Now, what I'm actually having here is an Elinchrom ELC 1000 with a deep octa. And the deep octa is normally already a really cool softbox, but what we actually did is we added a grid, light tools grid. Now, the light tools grid aren't really cheap, but they're really good in quality. As you can see here, it's actually hanging down, the strobe, and the grid is very, very tight. Now, if you have a very cheap grid, it will actually bend down. So that's not so nice. So there's also something else you guys need to know, and that's feathering of light. Now, feathering of light means actually that we're using the sides of the light. Now, the center of the light is always hard. The sides are really soft. So that creates a really cool effect. The other thing is something called light fall off, inverse square law. Light falls off over the distance. As you can see here, our model, she will be standing in front of this beautiful red background, which, by the way, is painted by my intern, Angela. Big hand of applause for Angela. Okay, that was very enthusiastic. And she will be in front of that background, and I will be placing my light like this. And first, I will just place it the way that you normally would do, with the model in the hotspot. Now, how do you know she's in the hotspot? As soon as you can look straight through the grid, she's in the hotspot, because the grid actually aims the light. Now, very important, before we do any Photoshop shoot, is to get the software in which we will actually shoot. Now, you can shoot tethered in Lightroom. You can shoot tethered in whatever software you want if you use hot folders. But I'm using Capture One. So I will start up Capture One now on the computer. And we can start with the first photos. Now, you will see the photos coming in. And of course, you can give commands on them. And I will try to change stuff if you want. Okay, let me see if this works. There we go. So now you can see Capture One, and in a very small, and I like that better because then you don't see me as big, you can see me. Okay, I'm using a light meter, a Psychonic 758, and what I do is I will just aim it towards the light source, trigger it, and I get a reading of 8.02. I will walk closely to the camera until Anouk says stop, so you can see it. And you see 8.02. Now, 8.02, it's very easy to explain. Your light meter will give you the full f-stops, for example, f8 or f11. Now, 8.02 actually means you have f8 and 2/10 of an f-stop. So if I want to shoot on f8, the only thing I have to do is lower that strobe 2/10 of an f-stop, so 2 clicks. We have a question.
2 questions came in, one from Johan. Frank, can you show us how to set up a full body shoot too, instead of only portrait, please?
Yes, we will do that too.
And the other question was, where can I find the grids for the deep octa?
Okay, the grids for the deep octa you can find online at Light Tools. So if you Google Light Tools, that's the company that actually makes them. And the full body we will also be doing full body, so don't worry. Okay, so I have to set my camera now on f8. Okay, another question.
Another question, very dark in the studio. Video camera needs more light.
Yeah, that's the only problem we have. It is dark in the studio at the moment, so I'm sorry for that, guys. We'll try to fix that next time. Okay, Rosa, can you look a little bit up? Very cool. Now, the first shot that you will see coming in, it's very, very bright on the model's face, and the background is also illuminated. Now, let's say I want a little bit less light on that background. Now, you know the inverse square law, right? Light falls off over a distance. So what I will actually do is I will move my light back and also ask my model to move forward about the same distance. Now, this is the first trick you can do. Very cool. Now we have a darker background. So this is very simple, inverse square law, inverse square law. Now, let's see if we can make this a little bit more interesting, because this is a normal, well, headshot. So let's move a little bit closer to my model, and let's bring something in I always call storytelling or expression. Okay, look really intense. Chin up just a little bit. Very cool. That's nice. Chin up just a little bit more. I always want those cat slides to light up in her face. Open your mouth just a little bit. That's really nice. Now, this is a lot better. This is what I call a little bit working with expression. Now, a lot of people will actually shoot their portraits a little bit differently. Let's see how normal people shoot their portraits in the portrait mode. And often they will center the eyes. Oh, sorry. Often they will center the eyes like this. And this is their portrait, right? You see the whole face of the model, you see the eyes, and you have a portrait. And if the lighting is okay and the model is cool, well, we have a cool shot. But that's not the way that you should do it. If you want to shoot in portrait mode, be sure to crop a little bit more aggressively. So I focus on the eyes, I make my composition, and now I press the shutter. Now I actually have a better composition. But this is also not really, you know, engaging with your model. The thing that I love to do is cut off her head. You know what I mean, right? I don't want to cut off your head really, but there we go. So now I crop even more aggressively. And let's be totally honest, we all know that there's a top of the head on every model, right? Because there's nobody walking around in the world without the top of their heads. So why should you include it in every picture? But this is the portrait mode. And although it looks pretty cool, it's a lot of model, right? And I don't want to have a lot of model in my picture. What I actually want is I want an engaging story. I want something that people look at and go like, that's interesting, what's going on? And this is just a portrait. Now let's switch from portrait mode to landscape. And now what you can see is that you get a totally different look. Way more intense, way more focused on the model, but also you see more of the background, which I find way more interesting. So can you tilt up your head just a little bit? There we go. Can you put your hair on one side? That's awesome. That's nice. Tilt your head that way. Really cool. And as you can see, I'm cropping rather aggressively to really focus on her eyes. And I'm always focusing on the eyes and then making my composition. So I use a so-called half press. So first you lock, then you make your composition. Now, a lot of people say, why use center focus point and not all the other focus points? Because that's what somebody told me. It's very simple to explain. The center focus point is always the most sensitive focus point, although that is changing now with modern techniques. But normally the center focus point is always the most powerful and the most accurate one. By using the center focus point, you can make different compositions. For example, if I take Anouk as an example, I can do this, change to there, change to there, do this, do this. I can go any way. Now, if you're forcing yourself to always use, let's say, the focus point on the top right, you will always have the same composition like this. And when I go through your portfolio, I will see the eyes of the model in the same place over and over again. That actually limits you. Now, some people will always say, you know, if you use center focus point, you focus and you make your composition, you will lose focus. You will actually lose focus. I've been shooting this method for as long as I can remember. And also the old photographers with film, they shot this method all the time because there was only one focus point in the center where you focused and everything aligned, you made your composition and you shoot. If you're shooting with extreme wide angles, that's where you actually can have a problem with your focus shifting. But with portraits, we often use longer lenses, 70mm, 200. So that's actually doable. By the way, at the moment, I'm using a 24-70 because in the studio, I find it very cool lens to work with. Now, if you look at the image, you already see that it's a little bit of three-dimensional because we use shadows, we use a nice backdrop that's actually a little bit darker than the model. And I just love the way that she looks. So let's take a few more. Can you tilt your head up? Really cool. Now look at the difference if I position her that way, or can you tilt your head that way and look a little bit more that way? Really nice. Or if I position her on that way of the screen. Now I like it a little bit more when the model is on the right side of the frame looking to the left. We are wired in the Western countries to read something from top left to right bottom. Now, if you have something on the bottom right that's very bright and very attention-grabbing, for example, a red logo, people will immediately go to the red logo and go to the next shot. If you have something on the left bottom, people will actually immediately go there and look at the picture again. If you fade that logo out just a little bit or make it small, people will first look at the image, will try to leave the image, see the logo, go back, and then look again. And this is why my logo is always there. So we have another question.
What is for you the difference with shooting a man or a woman? For example, would you use the same light for a man?
Okay, what is the difference between shooting a man and a woman? In theory, there is no difference. You meter the light, you set the lights, and you shoot it. However, if you use light setups, I like for men to have it a little bit more contrasty. On the other hand, I already shoot very high contrast images. But I would never shoot a man, well, never say never, with a big softbox, like a 150 softbox, and just all the diffusion material in front of it. I like a man a little bit more rough. But again, as you look at the pictures that's now on screen, I already shoot high contrast images. So there's not really a difference for me between a man and a woman. One other very important thing, by the way, that I didn't do at the moment. If you shoot your images and you look at the images now, do you like them color-wise? Well, yeah, I love them. But are they correct? No, they're not. So I need something. And Angela, can you please hand Rosa the color checker? Now we have something called a color checker passport. This is an X-Rite product, and I highly advise you guys to get one. Now, that's a color checker passport. What you can do is you can use it to set your color balance. But, and that's more important, if you use Lightroom or Photoshop, you can use it to set your color calibration file for your camera. Just to hold it flat in front of the light, like that. And Rosa, the software is still isn't fixed yet. So you have to make a funny face, otherwise it won't work. 1, 2, 3, go. That's the duck face. So now I have my shot with that's an amazing one. That will be the cover of the new book, The Funny Faces of the Color Checker Passport. So I talked about expressions, right? Now here we have one. That's pretty awesome. Thank you so very much. Cool. So now in Lightroom, you can make a profile with this. In Capture One, it isn't supported. So that's the problem a little bit. But with Capture One, you can actually use it to make the proper color balance. So no color casts. Now, what do I need to tell you guys more? If you forgot to shoot the color checker, you can solve this very easily, but don't tell anybody. You just make one image that's perfect in your eyes, and you copy that setting to all the other images in which you forgot to shoot the color checker. Now, it won't be perfect, but if you use the same color on all those images, it's not wrong anymore. It's a look, it's a style. Just don't tell your customer that you screwed up, right? Okay, so let's see what we can do more with this light setup, because this is okay, but it's not very spectacular. So let's make it a little bit more interesting. Now, if you move light closer to your model, the light will fall off more rapidly. Now the light is actually, for my doing, a little bit further away from the model. I like it closer. Can you move a little bit that way? And a little bit more, oh, just stay that way. By the way, did you see what I do with my hands? We call it magic hands. If I tell my model to go that way, she will actually go that way. If I tell her to go that way, she will actually go that way. Tilt your head. Now you guys behind the computer, I see you doing this. Tilt your head, chin up, chin down, and head bang. So anyway, why do I do stuff like that? Very simple. If I tell her to go left, she will actually go right, because her right is my left, right? Now if I tell her to go right, and I know her left is my right, so I actually want her to go left, so I will tell her right. She will go, well, probably it depends on the model. If she's really smart, she knows my left is her right, so she'll actually go left when I say right, right? You know that I can't even follow it through myself at the moment, so it's very confusing, especially for the model. So you can better just say, can you go that way? That way. Tilt your head. Like this. And do the head bang. So funny. It's always cool to do stuff like that. Okay, let's place the light really close to the model and drop it down on her. Well, not drop it down on her, of course. And what we're going to do is we're going to feather the light away from the background, just to show you guys, if you have a smaller studio, what you can actually do. So the light is now feathered away from the background, so it will still illuminate the model from the background, but it will not be like slam bam on the background. So let's meter this. 8.05. So that actually means F8 and 5/10 of an f-stop. So we go down 5 clicks to go to F8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now I'm on F8. Now, normally I do this with my light meter. I have a module inside which can actually lower and raise the output of the strobes. But somehow I destroyed one of the buttons, so it doesn't work at the moment, but they're fixing it. So can you look a little bit more up? Really nice. Now, as you can see, we now have a more of a spot effect behind my model. So it's a little bit darker, the light falls off a little bit more rapidly, and I like this look a little bit more. It gives just that little bit of extra contrast. Now, how much is a little bit? That depends on what you want to do. Sometimes a client will go like, I like this shot, but can you just give it a hinge more contrast? Don't change your light modifiers, just move it closer to the model, and you will have a more rapid light fall off. If the client goes like, I want a little bit more light, move it a little bit further away. And so you can play with it. We have another question.
What square of the color checker you use for white balance in the grayscale?
Okay, which square of the color checker do I use for color balance? Any of the gray patches. Now I will show that and we will zoom in on this because that's a good question. We get that a lot. Now this is the color checker. Do you have it in camera, Annemiek? Cool. Any of these squares, just 1, 2, and 3. Now, why not the white one? The white one we don't use, and that's very simple to explain because that's very close to the clipping point, 255, 255, 255, or 254, depending on who you ask. The black one we also don't use because that's very close to 0. This one I don't use that much for the very simple reason it's very dark. That one is very good, and that one is actually perfect. Now, why that one? Very simple. If you're shooting on higher ISOs, there will be color noise in these two patches. If you do it wrong, you will actually be a little bit infected by the color noise. This one, you never do. And these two are pretty good. Now, if you're using very, very high ISOs, go for that one. If you're using studio stuff, just use that one. Now, some people also say, what are those? Because those are actually also for white balance. Well, yes and no. And I'm a Colorati from X-Rite, so I'm sponsored by X-Rite, so I should only say positive stuff about their gear, right? Well, that's not how I work. I think those shouldn't be in here because it's confusing. There's a portrait here and a portrait there, and it means that if you balance on those, the portrait will be a little bit more red. Some people say it's cool for the skin tones. And these are for landscapes. They will actually change the, I just do it, I do it the wrong way, sorry. These are for landscapes, these are for portraits. The portraits will change the skin tones a little bit, make it more red, and the landscapes will do a little bit more on, for example, the greens. I strongly believe that if you just use the correct setting, you can use a setting in your RAW developer, for example, Capture One, DxO, or Lightroom, and create that look. I would never use those. On the other hand, if you have a whole series of images and you just love that setting, and you copy it to all the settings, you have a style and a look. But I think for a color calibration standpoint, just use only the top part and just forget about the lower part. So this really works very well. Any more questions, Brian, or?
No,
Okay.
it wasn't really a question.
Okay.
One was adjust the shutter of the main video camera so it gets more light.
Okay, we will try that the next time. We can't do that at the moment because we only have one person behind the cameras. Okay. Rosa, we want to try something spectacular.
Yes.
I want you to look at the light and also with your eyes. And as soon as I say yes, you make a scream without making any sound. 1, 2, 3, go. There will be a total Big Mac that can go into her mouth. And I want to do the same thing, but now with both hands in the screen, in the picture. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Now this is something we call expression. I love having expressions in my shot. And the fun part about expression is you get something else every single time. Okay, so for now, I want to ask Rosa to change.
Yes.
So we're going to do another light setup. I'm going to check very quickly if I can change the camera for you guys that it has a little bit more light. And then we'll be right back with the next setup. Yes, Brian, you have a question. Okay.
If you would not have a color checker, what color temperature would you use in the studio? Around 5,000 K?
Probably depending on the light setup, yes.
And the other one, do the pure offset shoots in the studio influence the images?
Yes, without any doubt. The fluorescence in the studio will always change your light quality. because the light quality is a mix of both the tungsten in the studio at the moment and the fluorescence. On the other hand, you don't use the tubes at the moment for the studio lighting, so only for the video. Now, as soon as you start shooting, you're shooting on f8 or f11 on 125th of a second, which actually means that we will cut all the ambient light. If the strobes won't fire, you get a black image. So no, they don't affect anything during the photo shoot, but with video, they do interfere. But because we're now only registering, it's okay. The color is okay for registering, but as soon as we would do a professional video shoot, then we use LED panels. But we didn't want to do it during the digital classroom because when I walk around, I really walk around. So if we have LED panels, well, I can kick them over and we have a lot of damage. So I think the video is now better on that camera. Yes, guys, that's now better. You see, we fix everything you ask. Okay, so we're going to remove this strobe and we're going to do something else. So let me see, we're going to turn this one off. Okay. Now, one of the things that I love to do is work against white backgrounds, but not the white background that you guys think. I love to have structure in my walls. Now, I recently did a video for CalB1 in which we explained everything about how this studio works. Because when you look around the studio, we don't have a lot of paper. We only have 10 rolls, which are actually on one system. But we do have a lot of custom painted walls. And we're going to walk to the white wall over there. So I'm going to remove some of the strobes, and we're going to actually shoot over there. And we're going to show you guys with different lighting setups what you can do with just a very simple white wall. So let's remove these. As you can see, it's a little bit tight with all the cables now. That's one of the problems of doing this live. There we go. That one I need later on. Okay, for the first, I'm just going to do it very flat. I'm going to use the light motive from Elinchrom. And this is a new softbox. As you can see, it's a pretty cool one. It's really big. And one of the things that I love about it is the quality of light it gives. So let me change this camera to a position where you can see the model in a moment. There we go. Now, the fun part about this is because it's a deep octa, or actually it's not an octa. It has very, very many rods, so it's almost round. But because it's deep, it will actually steer the light. Now, if you have a square softbox, what does it do? It makes a square in the eyes of the model. If you have an octa, let's keep it simple, I'm Dutch. If you have an octa, it will actually create something that's a little bit more round on her face, right? Now, if you have something like this, it will actually create a beautiful round image. However, there's more. If you have a shallow softbox, let's say the old standard softboxes, they were all very flat and they didn't take much space. And you have one diffuser panel, and you have a diffuser panel in the front. The problem was, as soon as those softboxes became bigger, the light fall-off between the center of the softbox and the sides were actually like maybe one stop or maybe even two stops below. So they had to find something to make that more interesting or less light fall-off. Elinchrom did that with the indirect lighting system, meaning there's a strobe inside the softbox aiming towards the back. So it would actually do this, aim towards the back, and then spread out the light, meaning you get a better light fall-off. But then they became like, okay, we want to focus the light more. And that's when they come up with the deep octas. So the one we used before was the deep octa 1 meter. They also have a 75 centimeters, which I love for outside. And this is the totally new generation. The nice thing about this is it really channels the light forward. The deeper the softbox, the more it will channel that light. And in this case, it's silver, so it will give you a really snappy image. Now, normally, there's also diffusion material in this softbox, of course. One in the center and eventually one in the front. But I always remove those. And why do I remove those? Very simple. I want optimum image quality. And for me, image quality means contrast. So I'll actually change that. So let's turn this one on and just aim it at the wall, really flat. And we'll ask Rosa to be standing here. And as you can see on the ground, you already see that it has that really nice curve on the ground. So you can almost use it as a huge spot effect. Oh, and by the way, guys, if you can tell me how the image quality is during the transmission, because we're using satellite, and we normally don't use that. So I would love to hear from you guys how the image quality is. So not about the darkness or whatever, but the sharpness. Oops. Don't break your neck, because you can only do that once. Unless they fix it, of course. Okay. Love that dress. Can you stand against the wall, please? Now, what I love is shadows. And shadows against the wall are one of the most beautiful stuff to play with. Now, according to a lot of people, shadows are wrong. They're afraid of shadows. But why should you be afraid of shadows? Shadows are the soul of a shot. Make sure you integrate those within your photo shoot. Can you give me the extra sky port, Angela? I'm on 16.8, so I have to go down 8 clicks to create F16. And let's do F16 on this shot. So go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now the fun thing about the Elinchrom strokes is I don't have to remeter. I know that when I go down 8 clicks, it will actually be down 8 clicks. Okay, can I have my camera, please? Thank you. So we're going to go to F16. And let's very simple start with one portrait-like shot. Really nice. And you can see the model popping out from the background, right? And I love the way that the shadows are rendered with this light modifier, because it really gives you that nice soft shadow and not that really harsh one. But we want to do a full body shot. Now I can do a full body shot many different ways. One of the first things you can do with full body is, of course, zoom out, walk really close to your model, create a cool shadow effect on the background from yourself, and shoot the image. The only problem is he now looks like Mama Smurf. As you can see here, it's weird. Rosa, what pills did you take this morning? That's really bizarre. Oh my, she looks really like Mama Smurf. So that's not the way to do it, of course. But I'm using a wide angle, right? I'm using 24 mil, aiming down at the model. So let's zoom in a little bit more and see the difference. Okay, now this is a little bit better. Actually, this is a lot better. But the model is still, well, she's not really tall, right? Do we have another question, Brian?
Quite a few, actually.
Okay.
Satellite stream target image is great for the webinar session.
Yes?
Frame rate is low, but quality is good. Audio seems a bit out of sync, but I think that's because of drop frames.
Okay, so we can't help to drop frames. That's something probably Google has to do. But we are looking into new streaming options all the time, of course. And again, this is the test. But I think that we will be working on the quality even more. Okay, question 1.
Are you afraid you will get a vignetting with Octa? What do you do to avoid that?
Okay, aren't I afraid to get a vignetting with the Octa? No, at the moment not, because I can actually see where the light is going. And if there is a vignetting, which we will actually start to do in a moment, I will use it in the picture. And the second question, Brian?
Do you never use a small disc to block the flashbulb?
The deflector, yes, we use that a lot if we want different kinds of looks. So the question was, because you guys probably can't hear Brian, the question was, don't you use the deflector from Elinchrom to change the light? Now, what the deflector from Elinchrom does, and that's a really cool system. And I will explain that as soon as we start switching around with another light source. But it's a deflector which you can actually put in your light, and it will reflect the light back to the background of the strobe and aim it forwards. Think about what you see in a beauty dish. But with Elinchrom, you can do it in all the light sources. Okay, so now I'm on a lower angle. And as you can see, the model now looks even taller. Now, if you have a model that is Mama Smurf, that's really short, and she goes like, man, I wish I were taller. Do you know how you can really make her day and your wallet grow? Very simple. You go and sit on the floor, and you use that wide angle trick, but now you use it the other way around. Hello. So I'm sitting on the floor, going down. And if you have a swivel screen like the Sonys do, Now, swivel screen means that you can actually take your screen and just swivel it like this. I can actually go even lower. There we go. And now she looks tall. Really tall. Oh my, you're tall. AI models will love it for it. Will love you for it, sorry. Okay, let's take a few shots with this, different poses, and let's see what we can do. Okay. Now, one of the things that you should never do is this. Okay, Rosa, just do something. Yeah, cool. That's not the way to do it, guys. You have to make sure that your model is constantly engaged. Now, what do I mean with, by the way, the images that come in, Rosa, couldn't you just pose a little bit worse? Because this doesn't prove my point. That's the problem when you work with Rosa. Our models like Rosa, they pose way too good. Normally, when you pose a model, she will go like, yeah, no, what do I have to do? What do I have to do to make this shoot work? And that doesn't work well for the shoot, right? So what you should do is you should always tell something to the model. Now, I do photo walkthroughs for studios, and I will always look at what the studio does and how they approach their clients. And one of the things that I did during one of those shows, during one of those walkthroughs, was actually they did this. They shot, and they had an assistant setting up the lights, and it went something like this. No. No, that doesn't look right. No, that sucks. No, that's terrible. No, he didn't mean that the model was doing something wrong. What he actually meant is the light is wrong. Well, what does the model think? Imagine this, I'm shooting you, and I'm constantly saying, no, it doesn't work right. Oh my, come on, man, work a little bit harder. Come on, do it like this. As a sitter, you will get really, really nervous, guys. And that's what you can see in those models. The face will going like, and the moment that all the lights were right, his face was going like, yeah. Now I told him like, okay, if you really need your assistant to change the light, what you should actually say is this: great, 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 very good, great, very good. Keep it that way. Very nice, cool. And then they said like, yeah, but when do we know that the light is okay? Because if I say okay all the time, I said, no, all those words means actually change the light. Now, as soon as you say awesome, that's when they know the light is right. And after that, they just keep the light and you keep coaching your model. Now, look at this. When I coach Rosa slightly differently, and I don't even know what I'm saying sometimes. So if I shout out something weird like oliebol, that's Dutch. Doesn't matter. You hear? She's already smiling. And as soon as she's smiling, that's really cool for the photo shoot, because that means that we have our model at ease. Okay, so let's try this. Okay, Rosa, just take a very simple pose. That's cool. Okay, play a little bit with that pose. And I don't want to push her in a pose, so I'll just say, okay, play. That's awesome. Really nice. Keep going. That's nice. Tilt your body just a, yes, there we go. Watch out for that hand. Yes, that's awesome. Really cool. That's nice. Okay, keep it away. Nice. Tilt your head just a little bit. And of course, you can tell her directions. Okay, look a little bit more towards the light. Put one hand in your side. One hand is cool. There we go. Big smile. Awesome. This is really nice. Okay, keep it away. Change that a little bit. That's really nice. Chin up just a little bit. That's nice. And I didn't like that last shot, but I still say that's nice, because I will never, ever say something negative. Now, I love this one. And actually, when my model knows me a little bit better, she will hear in my voice which images I really like or poses I like and which I don't. That's cool. Really nice. Now, as soon as you have your shots and you know your model is at ease, I always do something that I call the very, 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 very quick photo shoot. And this really works, because now you can get the really cool results. And we actually do it like this. We go into our settings in the camera and we go to the high drive mode. Okay, do you know The Muppet Show. You know The Muppet Show. Do you know Animal?
No.
No? Animal is the guy that switches his head around and does all that crazy stuff with his hair. Okay, can you try that for me?
Yes.
I want you to just move around, wiggle your hair everywhere, and just be, yes, like that. And you will get a lot of shots in one procession. So,
Okay.
are you ready for this? 1, 2, 3, go. Cool. Now you will see a lot of images coming in. And this is one of the main advantages of the ELCs from Elinchrom. They're really fast. And I just hope that the images come in. Yes, there's a question.
If I would do a full body shoot, but I want to get a bit more light in the model's face, what's your advice?
If you do a full body shoot and you want a little bit more light in your model's face, actually there should be light in your model's face because you're placing your light correctly, right? And if you want more light in her face, just change the angle of light and use a light meter. Just very simple, just aim your light meter towards the light source, take a meter reading, and this part should be the highest in exposure. And then everything else should be a little bit lower. Or start out with a really big softbox. I will try one shot more because I don't know why they don't come in. Let me see if they come in now. Okay, this is one of the technical issues you can have during a photo shoot, which you shouldn't, of course. But let's disconnect the camera and connect it again. Now, I have to be honest, we're using 2 extension cords here, and they actually say that you can only use 1. Okay, we have the camera back. Now let's see if we can take one shot. And let's see if that comes in. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to try that series one more time, but I'm going to lower the output of the strobe just a little bit because I want a little bit less depth of field. 10, and I'm now on F8, so I'm going to do the same thing again, but now on F8, and let's hope that Capture One gets all the images in. Okay, Rosa, are you ready to do some headbanging?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. 1, 2, 3, go. Nice. Now let's hope that they come in. There we go. Of course, when you do this, don't shoot it on F16. Oh, guys, sorry. If something goes wrong, everything goes wrong. Brian, you have a question?
Yeah. When you tender the images, are in your memory card or only in your computer?
In Capture One's instance, only on the computer. So that's why I was a little bit terrified at start when you lose connection. But I have to be honest, with Capture One, you actually never lose connection. So what you guys just witnessed is something that hardly ever happens. So now I've set my camera on F8. So I was messing up a little bit, sorry guys. Okay, try it again. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, go. That's awesome. Okay, now you should have the proper exposure, as you can see. And as soon as we have the proper exposure, the images don't come in. I think I just shot one too many. Just one moment, guys. We'll disconnect. I don't know what's going on here. Again, this normally never, ever happens. Yeah, sure. Okay, no, just first one shot and see if that comes in. Yep. Okay, I won't shoot too many. Okay, are you ready? 1, 2, 3, go. There we go. I think because I use 2 extension cords, I'm overrunning the buffer and it actually crashes. So there we go. That's much better. Oh, I love that last one. Of course, you can also time it, right? But this is just the fun part, also for the model to play. But you can also time it. And normally, I would time it. So I will set it on single shot, and I will just time it. So can you look towards the wall? And as soon as I say yes, you turn around very violently. 1, 2, 3, go. And put your arms in your side while you're doing that. 1, 2, 3, go. And one more. 1, 2, 3, go. And as you can see, when you time this, you can actually shoot it a little bit before, a little bit after. You get this really dynamic shots. Now, in the old times, what did we do for photography? We had these big-ass cameras. Oh, I hope I can say ass, but big cameras. And you put that black cloth over your head, right? For some photographers, a really good thing, like for me. Just put the black cloth, disappear, and just do your stuff. The problem was, Okay, I'm going to take a shot. Hold your breath. 1, 2, 3. Skip a part. 59. 1 minute. And breathe out. And if you turn blue, that was no problem because they still shoot black and white. But you had to keep your breath for a long time. That's why they used posing stools, where you were actually sitting and you had something in the back of your neck holding you still. Then at one point, they changed everything. They went to 35 mil and you got strobes. Now with strobes, you got something really cool. Now, if you look at how the shutter works, normally the sensor, or in that case film, would be exposed over a certain area of time. For example, let's say 1 second. Your mirror locks up, your first shutter curtain opens, and for a second it waits, and then the second shutter curtain closes. Or if you're using leaf shutter lenses, it will just open in the lens. Now, as soon as they started using strobes, you have a big difference. Now I can shoot on f11 or f16. And this will actually happen. The mirror locks up, the mirror moves up, the first shutter curtain opens, there is no light captured. And then at one point, there's a peak of light, and it drops off very rapidly, and then it's dark again. Because if I shoot my model without strobes, watch this. And that was the best pose ever, but there was no strobe. So what do you get? A dark image. And that's, of course, normal, because we're in a studio, 125th of a second, f8, there will be no light. Now, as soon as the strobe goes off, now everything is captured. Now, a lot of people ask me, how do you do motion with that kind of stuff? Because you're shooting on 125th of a second, because that's your X-sync in the studio, meaning if you go higher, and I can show you guys that, you will get a black bar. So let's go to, for example, well, let's go to 1/200th of a second. I take the shot, and you can see a very faint black bar appearing. Now, if I go even higher, that black bar will be bigger and bigger and bigger. There we go. I cut off the head of my model. It's like a neutral density filter outside. If you're using strobes and you want to lower the opacity of the sky, that's a really cool trick. Use a too high shutter speed because the ambient light will still shine through, meaning the sky will be really, really nice. And the strobe will still be there. And you can freeze the motion a little bit better. But let's go down to 250th of a second. And as you can see now, there's a little bar on the top. And let's go back to 125th. And now the black bar is gone. So I'm shooting on 125th, but how do I freeze action? Well, that's very simple to explain. Like I said before, you first have the ambient light, and then you have that peak. Now, that peak, that's different for every strobe. If you, for example, use a very cheap strobe, you will get a peak that is a little bit flattened off, like a tabletop. Meaning, if you shoot a model with action, she will be frozen, but there will be a little bit of movement in there because the strobe isn't fast enough. If you use stuff like the ELCs, they actually have a flash duration of 1/5000th of a second. That's really fast, and that's really cool to freeze motion. So when I shoot on that setting, and you can see that in the display, but if I shoot on that setting, it will actually freeze my model as if I was shooting with 1/5000th of a second. Now, for normal motion, like a jump or the Muppet stuff, you need approximately 1/2200th of a second, 1/2000th, that's okay. And those are actually the BRXs from Elinchrom, especially the 250s, or the RX units from Elinchrom. I don't know for other brands, but make sure that if you ask your manufacturer, that they give you the value on full power or half power, not on the lowest setting. There are some manufacturers out there that will actually tell you their strobes will do 1/10,000th of a second. And you go like, wow, that's really fast. And then you buy the strobes, you try to freeze motion, and it's all blurry. Now, why is that? Some manufacturers will give you that ridiculous number, but it only works on the lowest setting. Now, I don't know for you guys, but I don't want to shoot this jumping model on 2.8 or 1.0 for the very simple reason. I don't have any depth of field, and the model will move a little bit forward or backwards. So I want to shoot that on full power or at least f8 or f11. Now, with the new Elinchrom's ELCs, they wanted to add a lot more stopping power, and they had to sacrifice something. So in the middle part, it's now 1/5000th of a second. On the top end, it's about 1/2800th of a second. So more than enough still to freeze motion. The fun part is, now also on the lowest setting, you have a really high stopping power. So I think it's a very, very cool strobe to freeze motion, the ELCs. On all the other strobes, actually, the lower you go in power, the less stopping power you have. And with the ELCs, on every setting you use, you can freeze motion. So if you're into the freezing motion stuff, check out the ELCs. Okay, let's do something that I always call scaring the living daylights out of my model because he's wearing high heels. Are you willing to jump? No, of course not, because say no. No, of course not. No, because he's wearing high heels. Why would I make a model jump on high heels, right? Well, there is something like a semi-jump. And if you look at the old masters like Richard Avedon or David Bailey, what they actually did is they included a little bit of motion in their shots. And we already did it with the hairs, but let's do it with a little bit of a jump. So if I go and sit on the floor to create something a little bit more extra height, and I will just ask my model to not jump, but just stand on your toes on 3. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, now do the same thing while you do the hair stuff. So you do the, you look that way, you stand on your toes, and yes, you know what I mean, right? 1, 2, 3, go. A little bit more with your hair. 1, 2, 3, go. Awesome. Now what you can ask your model is stand on your toes and just lift up one foot just slightly from the bottom. Oh, sorry. 1, 2, 3, go. And stand on your toes. 1, 2, 3, go. Nice. Now we're already getting like she's almost running towards you. And now, as you do that, jump up just a little bit, like 2 centimeters or an inch. 1, 2, 3, go. And one more. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, jump just a little bit higher. 1, 2, 3, go. And now you actually don't have to twist your head anymore. Just concentrate on the jump. 1, 2, 3, go. And one more. Final one. 1, 2, 3, go. And I always say final one. And when I see something that's better, I will say another final one. 1, 2, 3, go. Awesome. One more. 1, 2, 3, go. And this will really be the final one. 1, 2, 3, go. Now, one more. 1, 2, 3, go. And that went really good, so this will be the final one. 1, 2, 3, go. Nice. And I already got a cool shot. Now, why do I say final one so many times? Very simple. If you say final one, the model will push itself just a little bit more. So there's a lot of final ones with me. Okay, Rosa, you can change again. And we're going to do something with a little bit more focused light on the background. And we have a question. So I will take a little bit of a drink and I will answer the question. So Brian, what's the question?
One is, for a silhouette, would you place the offset close to the background and the model forward?
For a silhouette. For a silhouette, I would probably choose a white background and then actually use the lighting only from the background, so not on the foreground, to create silhouettes.
And the other one is, during my shot session, I had this problem to have help of the shot in dark. How can I solve this? I'm from Spain, if you can speak a little slow.
Muy bien. Let me see. If you have half your shot dark, it probably means your shutter speed is too high. Like I showed you, if you use, for example, a shutter speed of 1/250th, there will be a part dark. Now, if you use strobes, you really have to go to 125th of a second. Because if you're on 125th of a second, that's actually your Xing speed. Oh, I have to be somewhere else. I have to be here. Sorry, guys. Still getting used to this stuff in my own studio. So when you're shooting on 125th of a second, the whole frame will be illuminated by the strobe. If you shoot on a higher shutter speed, half the frame will be cut off, meaning you will see your second shutter curtain. So just lower the output of your strobe. Okay, do we have more questions, Brian? Okay, then I will take another drink and we'll wait for Rosa to come back. Okay, so we're going to check one camera, which has no connection. Okay, we have a plug that's unplugged. That's what plugs do. They sometimes unplug. So let me see if we can get that camera running again. So one moment, guys. Brian, can I come by very quickly? Let me see which camera that is. It's okay. Both Blackmagic run, Brian. No, that's the Logitech. That one works and that one works. Don't use that one. So, okay. So guys, let's create something first with the, because a lot of you guys asked me for higher contrast. So just use this one, the light motive, and move it really close to the model and feather it to create a little bit more of a side light, for example, like this. There we go. Hello, Rosa. Are you ready? Please step in. That's really cool. So now what you can see in the background is actually that we have this nice, almost rounded effect around my model. Now, of course, first, because we changed the light, we have to meter. And I didn't use a color checker this time for the very simple reason I know that all my Elinchroms have approximately the same color temperature, and I don't want to shoot the color checker constantly during the webinar. So that's why not. But normally you shoot every shot with a color checker. And we have a question coming in.
Are you going to show us several lights too?
At this time, we will probably do one with several light setups in a high contrast portrait. So that will be probably at the end of the photo shoot. I first also want to do some small flash, and then we're going to do that one. So keep watching. You will be served. Okay, 11.6, and I can feather the light even more. There we go, 11.4. And as you can now see, we turned off the light very quickly, so it doesn't interfere with that camera. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it turns on. There we go. 11. Okay, so what you can see now is that we're using the side of the light. So she's actually not in the hotspot. She's actually on the side of my light, which creates the softer quality of light, because the sides of the light are always softer. Look at your flashlight. If you aim it towards, for example, a wall, you can actually see that the light is a little bit softer in the sides than in the center. Okay, let's see what happens. Can you look a little bit more towards the light? Really nice. And I want that background to give me that nice light fall off. So a little bit of a round area, like she's in the spotlights. The only thing I now have to change is what she's doing with her hands. Can you hold your hands like that? Really cool. And look towards the light. It's really nice. Let's frame her with that light. There we go. So we're now actually using my light as a sort of spot. Now, if I move around, I can, of course, still do a really flat portrait with beautiful soft light and just a little bit of an edge. But I can also move this way and create a really high contrast portrait by using the side of the light, which gives it a totally different look. So by walking around your model, you actually change the quality of light, and you also change the way that the lighting looks. So that's that part. Now, let's do one step further. Let's really put our model in the hotspot, because this is something somebody asked, so that was not planned. Actually, nothing is planned. We do everything here we just go. So let's take this one out, and let's use something that's a little bit more cheaper, and probably you guys all have at home. A reflector with a standard grid. And I'm going to use it in a few different ways that you probably didn't expect. So let this one cool off. There we go. Can I have the reflector with grid, Angela? It's there. I already set it up. Let's get this one out of the frame. There we go. And out of the frame of the camera. So. And again, for you guys just checking in, this is the test episode of the digital classroom in which I will explain some lighting setups. And during the year, we will do these 10 times a year, probably. And we're going to do more stuff. We're also going to build sets. We're going to do outside shoots. We're going to do smoke. We're going to do gels. But this is the test. Why is this a test? We don't know what can go wrong. So we first want to do a dry run. Yes, question.
Is increasing contrast using light technique some way different from increasing contrast in point production? Or is it only a question of saving time or being as perfect as possible during the shoot?
What do you mean with point reduction?
Post-production.
Post-production. Get it right in camera. Don't use Photoshop to fix stuff. If you want higher contrast in your images, do it with lighting. Don't do it with Photoshop. You know where Photoshop is great for? Tinting, doing skin work, removing stuff that you couldn't do on set. But if you're shooting and you want a high contrast image, shoot it high contrast. If you want low contrast, shoot it low contrast. But don't just shoot something and then create it in Photoshop. If you look at the picture that's on the screen now, how can you do something like that in Photoshop? If you shoot it flat, do you want to paint in all the shadows over there and all the highlights? That's impossible. That takes way too much work. Now, I wrote a book called Mastering the Model Shoot. And it's, I think, a really cool book that goes from A to Z in everything. In Photoshop is included, analog photography, digital, coaching the model. It just goes on and on and on. And I got one of those reviews on Amazon. And it really frustrated the heck out of me. And you know what it said? This is an old-fashioned photographer. Why spend all the money on lighting, locations, if you can just shoot somebody against a gray background and composite them in everywhere and just add shadows in a 3D render program? You know how much time that takes? I want to spend my time with my family or playing Battlefield or Command and Conquer or whatever. See my son smiling now. I don't want to spend my time hours and hours behind Photoshop doing a cutout, pasting her in, doing 3D renderings of light. I'm not Corey Barker. I'm not Joel Grimes. I want to be somebody who shoots it. Now, by the way, I meant Corey Barker and Joel Grimes in the most positive way, because they can pull that off. I can't. I can't retouch like that. I'm pretty good with photography. In Photoshop, I know what I have to do, and I'm pretty good at what I do. But I'm not a good cutouter like Joel does. See, that's pure magic, or Glenn Dewis. Those guys can do stuff that I will never, ever even want to touch. So I strongly believe do it in Photoshop only for the tinting and the retouching and not adding contrast. Of course, you can add contrast, but not high contrast lighting. Okay, so we all have this little strobe. It's called a reflector and grid. And what is it? Now, actually, Ansha, can you give me all the grids we have in this size? I want to show you guys something, because this is a question I get asked so many times, and it's actually a question that's very easy to reply. Which grid should I buy? It's one of the most asked questions. Which grid should I buy? Because we have this grid, we have this grid, we have this grid, and we have this grid. And now I'm blinded. Thank you, Anouk. I don't know if that makes any difference, the light, but... Oh, okay. So, quick response. Now, what's the difference between all those grids? I will come very close to the camera and I will show you. Grid number 1. Now you can see me. Oh, and we has to refocus. Now you can see me. Now you can still see me. You can still see me. And now I'm gone. Okay. Grid number 2. Now you can see me. And now I'm already gone. Grid number 3. Now you can see me. And I'm gone. It's like a little pin cushion, a pinhole. And the final grid. Sorry, this grid. It's okay. So all these grids have different thicknesses. Now, some manufacturers will do them in thicknesses like Elinchrom, and some will give you the same grid, but with different holes. And the thicker the holes, the less you see. So for example, this is, let me do it simple. This is a thin grid. This is a very thick grid. And this is the thickest. Now, when I want light on the background, and I only want a small spot, I will use this one. If I want widespread, I will use this one. If I want the maximum spread, I will use this one. If I want medium spread, I will use this one. So which one should you buy? Buy them all. And I will tell you why. It's not about how much light there is on the model. There's something else in the grids. Remember when I told you in the start of the classroom that we had something called inverse square law, light fall-off? This is where the grids become very important. Now imagine this, you have this full body model and you have your light all the way over there. Because you want that light fall-off to be really slow, because you want your whole model in the photo. Then you use the thickest grid possible. Now let's say you want very rapid light fall-off, but you still want that whole model. And you have your light closer, then use this one. And you can make exactly the same shot, but the light fall-off will be different, the contrast will be different. And that's why you should use all the different grids. So don't buy one, buy them all. Now, if you only have money for one, I always say get the middle one, because then you're in middle ground and that's okay. So we have another question.
Can you tell us again about what's the benefit of using a boom on a tripod, aiming the light, and why you're using it?
Okay, now the question is, why am I using a boom? I love Big Bada Boom. Now, I'm just kidding. I'm a movie buff, and Big Bada Boom is, I believe, from Fifth Element. So we sometimes even call here Aziz Light. You know, if you're a movie buff, you know the joke. Now, why do I use a boom? The boom is very cool because now I can actually not only move my light up and down, but I can actually get it into the frame without being into the frame. So if I want to light my model like this, normally my strobe would be here. So if I'm shooting, I'm actually hitting the pole. So I have to move here. And then I lose that momentum where the model is straight in my beam of light. Okay, one little tip about placing your grids. There's a little white piece here. So I will walk a little bit closer so you guys can see. There's a little white piece. Make sure that aims out. A while ago, I had an intern, and she placed it the wrong way in. And I asked her to take out the grid. After about, 2 hours of intense shooting, it smelled like bacon for a week. Because those grids get really, really hot. And so if I take the little nip, is that the correct term? Whatever. If I take that little piece, I can just take it out and hold it like this. If I don't, you have to let your strobes cool down. And that's why you should actually buy two. Because if you forget, you can use the other strobe. Okay. Now, I want to make sure that my model is in the hotspot. So how do I do that? I cannot do a cross metering. I can, of course, walk towards her and meter it like this. F11, F16, aim it up. F16, F11, F22, what's going on? Aim it down. That doesn't work. That doesn't work at all. Now, you guys saw me looking through the grid, right? And you saw my face. That's the same thing I'm now going to do with my model. Can you move a little bit that way? Perfect. Can you look towards the grid? Can you look through it?
Yeah.
Do you see the strobe? No, right?
Yeah.
Is it perfect now?
Maybe something more. Yeah, now it's perfect.
Now it's perfect. Now I did two things. One, I made sure that my model is in a hotspot. And two, watch this. Pose the model. Yeah, cool. Yeah, cool. What happens? She's out of the hotspot, right? Yeah, make a different pose. Okay, cool. Yeah, cool. Make a different pose. Okay, cool. And she's out of the hotspot. Now that she knows that she has to look straight through the grid, she will actually do this. She will pose like this. This looks really weird, guys, right? It's like a little dance. Give me a hula hoop and Hawaiian. No? Okay, whatever. Now, because she's in the hotspot, I really need to meet her close to her face. Now, we have something called the comfort zone of the model. I don't want to be sticking my light meter like on the front of her nose and going like I have to meter this. No, I want to be I want my model to be comfortable. So what I will ask her is, can you step a little bit back? 11.6. Now, because she moved a little bit back, I can move my light meter in front of the face, and later she will go a little bit forward. So 11.6. So I have to go down 6 clicks because I want to be on F11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So let's see what happens. Oh, by the way, this is another cool tip. Get one of those in your studio. If you have laminate, like we have here, and you can buy 2, you can actually do a race at night. But those are really cool because otherwise you have to bend down and you only have one back. So if I sit down like this, that will save my back. Okay, cool. Really nice. Keep it away. Nice. Give me a little bit of a pose, a little bit more aggressive. There we go. That's nice. And I love the shadows on the background like this. That's really cool. Can you do one with your hairs again? Yes? 1, 2, 3, go. One more. 1, 2, 3, go. Nice. I only don't like the hand like this. It looks a little bit like a bokje. That's Dutch. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. Awesome. One more. 1, 2, 3, go. That's nice. Wow. You see how adding a little bit of motion can really spice up a shot and go from okay to wow? Do you have another question, Brian? Okay, no questions. I thought I saw somebody. Somebody maybe had to go to the restroom and they went like, hello. Okay, so this is okay. But now let's say I want a little bit more direction in light. So I don't want to do that in Photoshop. I want to do it with directional lighting. So let's change the light to a little bit more contrasty. Now, how do you get more contrasty light? By moving it to the sides. So I'm taking my light, and this is where the boom again comes in very handy. I'm going to place it really close to the wall and aim it like this. Aim it down. Go up a little bit. And you can lean against the wall if you want. You actually don't have a choice. I told her if you want, but of course she has to. Okay. Let's meter the light. 16.7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm now going down 7 clicks. And I will remeter very quickly. Also here. And that's pretty cool. Okay. So I'm now on f16. And f16 is a pretty high aperture. But it will be okay for this. Okay, let's first shoot from the position which I normally shoot from. Which is, there is no normal position actually. But let's say straightforward. Okay, can you look towards the light a little bit? Perfect. Center your eyes. Really nice. Look at me. Awesome. Look with your eyes here. Really cool. As you can see, we now have that really high contrast image. It really pops out, but it can be way better. Let's go a little bit flatter. Can you look straight at me? Now, if you don't like the nose shadow, make her look that way. And eyes towards me. Chin up just a little bit and look straight at the strobe. Nice. And of course, you can move this way and create something even more spectacular. Look down a little bit. Nose a little bit more towards me. Perfect. That's nice. Now, let me see. If you aim it down a little bit more, and you make it portrait, you can get a more evolving image. Now, sometimes I like landscape more, sometimes portrait. Now, for the next setup, we're going to use small flash. And Rosa's going to change, and we're going to use another wall. And we're going to switch a little bit from gear. And in a moment, we'll be back. Actually, the cameras will be running, so if you have any questions in between, just ask. But I'm going to set up the small flash now. Are there any more questions, Brian, coming in? No? That's really quiet. I hope you guys like it. There you go. Also no questions on Twitter?
Nope.
Okay. So, we're going to take the small flash and let's take this wall, the gray one. Annemiek, als je camera's, if you want to aim cameras towards the gray wall, please. Okay. So first going to show you the gear we're going to use. I'm going to use one strobe, and after this we're going to make a multiple light setup as you requested, somebody. I'm using the Mitros Plus from Photics. Now the Mitros Plus is really cool because it has built-in, believe it or not, receivers. So you can actually use the Photics unit, the Odin in my case, on camera and control the strobe from there. So you don't need extra devices over here. It's all integrated. Yes, you have a question.
You moved the light on the second setup, but you didn't check it if the model was still on output, or did you get it on site?
I did that. Somebody asked, you moved the light in the second setup. That's a long time ago. Did you remeter? No, I didn't. I just wanted to show you what happens. And the model did approximately the same distance as I moved the light. So it's normally I would remeter if I wanted picture perfect, but in this case, I just winged it. And you have more questions, Brian?
No, just some compliments from people.
Ah, compliments are always nice.
You are teaching very well, Frank. Thank you. I like it. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, should I give up my day job and start teaching? Okay, so one Photics strobe, Mitros Plus, and as a steering unit, normally we use Skyports for the big strobes, but I will show you something else, and it's really neat. It's the Photics Odin. Now, this is the Photics Odin, and that talks to that one. Meaning, if I turn it on, I can actually use TTL, manual, I can zoom my strobes, and I only use one transmitter and one strobe. And inside the strobe is already the receiver, so that's really cool. Now, modification, we're going to use Rogue. Wow. Sorry, guys. Can we go offline for just 5 minutes? No? Ah, that's a shame. So as modification, we're going to use Expo Imaging. It's one of our main sponsors for the digital classroom together with BenQ. And we're going to use their gear now for modifying the light in a moment. But first, we're going to set everything up. And by the way, again, if you just tuned in, this is Digital Classroom, and it's a test episode. So this is not a real episode yet. Although, if everything goes right, this was the first episode. If anything goes wrong, I have an excuse. So that's actually why we call it a test episode. Yeah, we have a question.
You're not concerned about the shadow on our nose. Changes its shape. Appears to be bigger, etc.
Don't tell the model that her nose will be bigger because of the nose shadow. The question was, aren't you scared for the nose shadow because it will make the model's nose appear a little bit bigger? Now, if you see something that makes the model look worse, delete the image. That's the best tip I can give you. If you see something that makes the model look great, don't delete the image. So if you see a big nose, delete the image. If you see a smaller nose, keep it. If she likes a big nose, do it the other way around. So, but normally, no. Let's give a serious answer. If you see a nose shadow that you don't like, just change your model's face. Like we did in the last setup. You first saw a nose shadow that I didn't like. Change your face to the other side. Light is all about direction. There is no magic in lighting. The problem is a lot of photographers are being controlled by their lighting. And you should actually be in control of your lighting. Don't let your light control it. So again, we're going to start now with the small flash part. And again, I would like to thank BenQ and Expo Imaging for making this all possible. Because again, as I told in the start, this has been my dream forever to do a digital classroom next to the workshops. And thanks to those guys, we can actually make it work. So if you need a new monitor, make sure to check out BenQ because they have some cool stuff, but I will talk about that later. And of course, for small flash, we always use the Rogue Expo imaging stuff because the flash benders are incredibly cool. Okay. So I don't want to make it a big commercial, so I will shut up now. But BenQ, Expo imaging, they rock. So I did it anyway. Sorry, guys. Okay, so turn on the strobes, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot on ETTL mode. Now, ETTL, what's ETTL? Frank, tell us. Well, okay, I will tell you. ETTL is pretty cool on paper. And it's pretty cool if you let experts use it, like Joe McNally. Then ETTL rocks. But if the normal person uses ETTL, and you don't have a clue what you're doing, it's actually pretty good. But as soon as you start walking around your model, as soon as you start doing the funky stuff, you will find out that ETTL is actually pretty limiting. What does it do? First, we have to talk a little bit about what metering does. If you do metering with a light meter, you actually use incident meter reading, meaning I hold my strobe here, I fire it. I hold my light meter here, I fire the light, and it will meter something. And it will give you a value for, let's say, F11. I know now for sure that if I set my camera on F11, my image will be correctly exposed. There also is something called reflective metering. And in a later episode of Digital Classroom, we'll explain that. That is called spot metering. If you do that, you will actually get a value for 18% gray, middle gray. Now, some cameras are calibrated to 12% gray. Forget about that. 18% gray is middle gray. Now you can calculate. For example, if you add 2.5 stops to 18% gray, you will get pure white. If you take off 4.5 stops, you will get pure black. Now, if that went a little bit too fast, I will explain very simply. F11 is 18% gray. Every time you double the amount of light, you add 1 stop. So if I'm reflective on F11 and I go to F16 and F22, I'm 2 stops higher. Now, if I go to F22.5, I'm actually on pure white. Now, that doesn't make any sense, right, if I explain it like that. So let's explain it the other way around. If I'm on 18% gray and I add 1 stop, I'm on 36. If I add another stop, I'm on 72. If I add another stop, I'm on 144. So 2.5 stops will be pure white. If I go down, 18 divided by 2 is 9, 4.5, 2.2, 1.1, and approximately 1, so 4.5 stops down. And the only thing you guys have to do is calculate it with f-stops. Or by my book. Or watch any video online. Or just rewind this part as soon as it's online. Brian has another question.
Hey, Frank, can I have that second screen on my iMac?
Hey, yes, of course you can use the second screen on your iMac. You can use as many as you want, if you have money. And of course, the BenQs are really good priced, so I would get BenQ monitors. And actually, it sounds like a joke, but it isn't. On the photography show, I actually met Jason from BenQ, and at that point, I used ISO, and I really like ISO, really great monitors. The problem is a lot of my students ask me which monitor to buy. And the ISOs are incredibly good, but they're also at a very nice price point for that quality. However, something went wrong in the studio, guys, you don't want to know. So anyway, so BenQ has this really new line of products. And they're actually bringing now out monitors that have 99% Adobe RGB spectrums. And those are really affordable. They are not like €200 monitors, don't get me wrong. They are competitively priced. And we're now testing one of their 24-inch units. And I can tell you, it's next to an ISO. And you can see a little bit of a difference, but it's like 2 times the price difference. I don't know. So if you want to add a second monitor on your iMac, yes, you can. And just check out the big brands, ISO, NEC, and of course BenQ. What do you have more? Well, there are many, NEC, of course. But personally, I think that BenQ is doing some really cool stuff. And they will be bringing out a 27-inch later this year. So how do you connect the second monitor? Very simple. Use your Thunderbolt connector, because your Thunderbolt connector is also used for monitors. Or, and we do that in the studio, and Anna, maybe you can turn the camera around so people can see, and I walk there. And I will show you guys later also what we do software-wise. Now, if we aim the monitor towards Brian, you can see my son sitting there behind the computer doing all the stuff and making sure that you guys see video. And when you aim the camera over here, you see a big inch monitor. Now, how do we get 3 monitors over there and 1 monitor over here without any cables? If your computer doesn't have any extension options anymore, like for example, you already used all your Thunderbolt connectors and you don't have any pass-throughs, get something we call, and actually it's called that way, an Apple TV. Because the Apple TV can actually mirror your screen or extend your screen. Now, if you want 3 monitors, like you also want, for example, a monitor in the studio or where the parents are waiting for their child to be finished with the photo shoot, use 2 Apple TVs. And now I hear you guys going like, oh, Frank, you can only use 1 Apple TV at a time. That's correct. You can only use 1 Apple TV at a time. So how can we connect 2? Very simple. We use a software package called AirParrot 2. And it's for sale on the, I believe, on the Mac store, or otherwise you can buy it from their website. And I'm not affiliated by them anyway. I just love the product. And then you can use several Apple TVs or any other stuff. So you can extend your monitors that way. And you can use, let's just throw something out, there's 6 monitors, 6 Apple TVs, and 1 maybe via Thunderbolt, I don't know. But you can have a lot of monitors. So also on your iMac, but use the Thunderbolt port. That's the easiest solution. Any more questions, Brian, before I start to shoot? No? Okay, let's take a little bit of a drink. 3 hours in a row. That's, I hope I don't have to go to the restroom in between. Anyway, so I'm now shooting ETTL. And ETTL in theory should say, okay, Frank, you set up your lights. You press the shutter button and magic happens. And let's see if that magic really happens. I saw Joe McNally do this all the time, and with him it works, so let's hope it works with me. Now, my camera, this is very important, is on manual mode. And why is it on manual mode? If it's on AV mode, you will actually also get the ambient light. And at this time, I don't want ambient light in, I'm not outside. I want to cut the ambient light, so I'm just shooting manual on the camera, and I let the strobes do the ETTL. So I have my camera set up on, let's go to ISO 100. And let's say I want to shoot on 5.6, 125th of a second. And let's see what happens. There we go. And we have a properly exposed image. Yes, we have a question.
Does adding an extra monitor on a laptop influence the speed of tethering?
No, it doesn't. Adding extra monitors doesn't increase or decrease the speed of tethering. It just gives you an extra monitor, nothing more. Okay, just look that way if you want. And as you can see, I'm using the bare strobe, and it already gives you a pretty okay image, if you like high contrast, like I do. You can also zoom. So let's go to zoom. I'm now on 24 mil. Let's go all the way up to 135. What I'm now doing is I'm zooming the beam. Let's see if we have any difference. Now you can see it very faintly, but it's not. No, it's not enough for this. So let's forget about the zooming at the moment. There we go. Now, what can you do more with this? Well, actually, you can change around your lights. You can do stuff, but you end up with pretty harsh light. The fun part about ETTL is I can actually go here. And I don't have to remeter. I can go here, really close to my model. I'm now actually using feathering, so let's see how it figures out that one. And here we have the first problem. Look at her face. Very, very overexposed. Now aim it straight at her face. Let's see what happens. Not really flattering, right? What you could do is go into your settings and change, for example, ETTL minus 1/3 of a stop. Just try. Ah, that's better. This looks much better. But is that the way you really want to work? Because now if I move here, can you look that way? It's maybe a little bit too dark. I want a little bit more light. So I go to my settings. Yeah, go to the settings, go to 0. Yeah, okay. And, well, you get a lot of problems. And you don't want to be in front of your client like that, right? You want your client to see a confident photographer, somebody who just sets everything up and goes like, yeah, no problem, boom, done, magic. And with ETTL, you can move the strobes around. So ETTL is really cool, for example, for a street portrait. So I will have Anouk, let's emulate a street portrait. Where's Anshua? Nowhere? Okay, we'll use Anouk. Anouk, can you hold the strobe, please? So this is my wife. Can you hold it really close to her from that side? Really nice. That's cool. Okay, Anouk, can you move a little bit that way? That's really nice. Okay. Nice. Okay, I want a real rapid light follow-up. Move it really close. Aim it straight at her. Really nice. Awesome. Okay, I want less light follow-up. Go all the way back. More. Way more. Go back. Go to China. Go to China. Stop. Okay, there we go. Aim it straight at my model. Move a little bit closer. We don't have enough power, I guess. A little bit closer. There we go. Nice. So it's too dark, of course, but you get the drift, right? It's very simple. You just move around and it will compensate. Now, the problem you see is actually why I let Anouk move all the way back. We have enough power in the strobe. But ETTL tries to make it 18% gray, which, if you look at the screen, it does pretty well. This is 18% gray. But we don't want that. We want to meter the light. We want to do manual. So if, Angela, would you please give me my light meter? I will now switch from ETTL to manual mode. So just go to modes, channel A, go to mode, manual. And let's put it on 1/8 power. Now with the photic system, you have to realize as soon as I press the test button, it will first give me a test pulse, meaning I'm on. And then it will give you the pulse that you put here. Now, if you guys are out there and you're using the photic system and you go like, my system doesn't do that, Frank, download their latest firmware because they actually do. Okay, so we're going to use the test. 4.06, which is almost 5.6. How do I get to 5.6? Well, if I have 4.06, I will simply just add 1/3 of a stop. And you can do that in your settings. So if I go here, it's now on 1/8. The only thing I have to do, Anouk is focusing. It's now 1/8. No, you can't. Okay, you just add 1/3 of a stop, and you now know it's approximately on 5.6, 1/10 of an f-stop off, actually. But that's okay. Okay, so now I'm on manual mode. And I did something completely wrong. The strobe isn't aimed at my model, it's actually aimed away. But still, let's see how effective the light meter is. And it's incredibly effective. Look at this. The strobe isn't aimed at my model, but I still have the perfect exposure. That's the power of the light meter. Even if you mess up, it's still okay. Imagine that. Can you look that way, please? That was, by the way, a lucky coincidence. Now, don't be that photographer that goes like, uh-oh, I didn't point the light meter, I didn't point the lights good, let's change the light. And you go like this, because now it's, of course, way overpowered. Okay, so we got this. Do we like that image? Yeah, we like it, but it's a little bit rough around the edges. So let's try something we call the big flash bender. Angela, can you give me the silver flash bender, please? Now, the first thing you have to realize is there are many different ways of lighting. One of the things that you have to realize is that if you want, Angela, they're on the sofa already. There you go. Now, there are many different ways of lighting. The smaller the light source, the harsher the light quality. The further away, the harsher the light quality, because actually the light source will get smaller. One of the biggest examples of this is our sun. Our sun is huge, but it's very far away. So it becomes a harsh light source. The small flash is actually very small, as you can see. It's a very small area. So it has very, very harsh quality of light. Now this is way bigger, right? So if I would place this one in front of my strobe, I will actually get this whole area to be lit, sorry. So let's put this on the strobe. And this is what I love about the flash benders. You can really easily mount them on any strobe. So whatever size, unless you have a really small one, strobe, then you can actually not mount it. Okay. Now it's on the strobe. Now let's turn it so Anna can see. Now there's one thing you have to realize about a flash bender. Normally, if you have a bounce card, all the energy, I will do it a little bit nicer by the way. So there we go. Now, if you have a normal bounce card, what happens? The light will go up towards the ceiling and you will lose a lot of power. Now, the flash benders, you can actually bend. And these are the new ones. Watch this. You can bend the sides way better. So now, I'm actually directing all my light towards my model. Now, let's see what we can do with this one. There we go. Can you move a little bit your head that way? Perfect. Now, of course, we have to remeter because we changed. Now, this is the thing when you use a light meter. You have to remeter. So if you're the run and gun type of guy who changes his lights constantly, who constantly changes his modifiers, who runs around and grows tired of running, then you use ETTL. If you're like me, you set up your lights and you have time and you want a proper and a perfect exposure, that's when you actually start using the meter. Because you have time. 5.63. So let's go down 1/3 of a stop. There we go. And now I'm on 5.6. So it goes pretty fast. Now, if you want to do it really correctly, get another remote control from Photix, and you can actually leave this one on your camera and use the test button on the other one. But make sure you have the settings correct. Yes, Brian, a question. 2 questions.
Will this tryout be free, available online later?
Yes, this tryout will be free online later if we did it correctly, but I hope we did.
What program are you using to tether?
What program am I using to tether? That's Capture One. Capture One is from Phase One and supports all major cameras for tethering. And it's really fast. And normally Capture One doesn't crash during tethering. And Lightroom sometimes will just stop tethering. And then you just do stop tethering, start tethering, and it works. Capture One is actually rock solid. Okay, so let's see what happens now. Look a little bit towards the light. Really nice. There we go. So now we have something similar than we did before with the sides of the light. But it's softer. It's even softer than the sides of the light of the strobe. But I'm saving a lot of power on my batteries because I can now actually use it direct. Now, if you say, okay, this is interesting, but it's not the shot that I really would go for. I like more control over my lighting. Now, watch this. This is incredibly cool. And you can only do it with the Photix products, as far as I know. We're going to actually aim the light down and make sure that there's no light hitting the background. And now it would be cool if we had a boom, which we don't on this one. So I'm just aiming it down. And I'm now taking light away. There we go. As you can see now, I'm just making sort of tunnel effect. I'm just bending. That's why they call it a flash bender, because you can bend the light. 4.08. Now, 4.08 is almost 5.6. But not completely. So your light meter is set up on full f-stops and your camera is set on 1/3 f-stops. So what you can actually do is instead of changing the light output, go from 5.6 to f5. Okay, can you look that way a little bit towards the strobe? Center your eyes. Look towards Anouk. There we go. And now I made my background a lot darker, as you can see here. So you can start playing with this effect, and she's actually very close to the background. Now let's say I want it even more. And for that I actually do need a boom. Angela, do we have a boom where we can put the small flash on? No, the booms, Anouk, those are there. The smaller booms. So we're gonna reattach the strobe to another modifier. To another pole, tripod, stand. studio stand, sorry. Whew, my English. Okay, there we go. Now, one of you guys asked me, why should I use booms? This is the reason why you should booms. Because now you can do more funky stuff. Okay. Now I want my light really close to the wall. So what I will do is I will place it like this. And let's move it this way, that's easier. The light doesn't want to do what I want to do. We'll make it do it. Okay, let's aim it up. There we go. And higher. And just make it almost touch the background, as you can see here. Then move it a little bit further away. Now you see why we use booms, right? Yes, question. It's like a real digital classroom. We have children, and they sometimes, sir. Yes. What?
You use the flash bender pretty high in respect of the model.
Yes, I use the flash bender pretty high in respect of the model for the very simple reason I want my light under an angle. See it like this. The sun is always above us, right? Unless it goes down, then it's on eye level of us, but it's never below us. So if I light my model, I will always shoot from an angle down, creating the shadows that you would expect from the sun. Now, otherwise you get Halloween lighting, and you don't want Halloween lighting. You love the movie Halloween, but you don't want Halloween lighting. Okay, so now I changed the head of the strobe, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make sure that the light doesn't hit the wall anymore. Now, normally, you can pretty much figure this out very quickly, but you will see that the patterns on the wall will be different every time we do this. So you can't repeat it very easily, unless you're a magician, which I'm not. But that's also the fun part about the flash benders. It's always different. 4.08, so that's almost 5.6, so I'm still on the right setting. That's a luck, I guess. Okay, there we go. Turn this one on. There we go. Look towards the light, please. Eyes towards me. And now we have no light on the background. We have a pretty dark background. Okay, one more question, Brian.
What is that boom? Manfrotto?
This is a Manfrotto boom, yes. Let's say I want a little bit more light on the background. The only thing I do is I will change, literally, the light path. Do we need to remeter? Yes, but I won't at the moment. There we go. Now we have a lot of light on the background. Now let's say we only want a little bit of light. Change the bending of the light. And now we have like a focused beam on the model. Let's say we don't like that. We want a little bit less of the beam effect. Just point this tip forwards. And now it's a little bit lower in intensity, I hope. No. Okay. Then do it a little bit more. And now it's lower in intensity. So you can start playing with this. You can make a lot of different setups with this. Now, if you want it totally gone, just do it like this. If you want more, aim it back. That's the fun part about the flash bender. But there is more. Now, if you're like me, and you really, really like a focused beam of light on somebody, for example, in a wedding, and you want somebody jumping out of the crowd, you don't do it with the big thingy. What you can actually do is just fold it up like this. And I'm like a balloon artist. What you now have is a snoot. Very cool, for the same price. So let's put this one on and let's see what happens. There we go. Let's make sure it's nice and tight. You don't want it to be falling off during the shoot on the face of the model or whatever. And now you can really pinpoint your light towards a certain location. For example, the face of your model or the visitor of the wedding. So you have one of your assistants walking around with a boom, aiming it towards, for example, a dancing couple. And let's see what happens. Okay, I won't meter it. Yeah, I will meter it because I don't know what the output is. So don't save time the wrong way. Can you look through? No?
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
Mm.
4.02. That's almost f4. So let's see. And let's go to f4. One moment. Look towards the light. And now you have this really, look a little bit more that way, with your nose more. There we go, eyes towards me. And now you have this really spotlight effect on the model. But let's say you want that even better. There we have another modifier for. But first we have a question, because this is just something you can do with the flash bender. You can bend it into a snoot. But of course it's better if you use a real one. So we're going to use that now. But first the question, Brian.
Are you using a large flash bender for this, or is it a small one?
The smaller one is smaller. The bigger one is bigger. There's really not much difference I can tell you about it. It's the smaller the light source, the harsher the light quality. The bigger the light source, the softer the light quality. So in this case, I'm using the big one. You can also use the smaller ones, but the effect will be that the light is a little bit harsher. So Angela, can you give me the grid, please? So this one was just folded as a grid. So now we're going to use the real grid. Are you still having fun on Rosa?
Yeah.
Yes, she is. It's always important that my models have fun, and you guys have fun, of course. That one. Okay, so here we have the grid. And the fun part about the grid is that you can actually use different thicknesses of grids. Now, you can take it off really easy. And inside, there are different types of grids. Now, this is the thin one. They also have a thick one. Oh, Annemiek has to refocus. Now, this is the thin one. There's also a thicker one, and you can actually put them together to create something that's really thick. So in this case, I'm going to use this one because this one is in there. And I guess it's in there with a reason. There we go. You just place it on top. And again, this is all live. So if something goes wrong, it's not the gear, it's just my nerves. And just use the elastic bands to make sure that it doesn't fall off, because the old ones sometimes fell off. Okay, make sure that you aim your strobe like this, and you just do the same thing as you did with the big flash bender. You just tighten it very tightly, and it can fit on almost any strobe, unless you have a really small strobe, because then you can't tighten it enough. Actually, this is better, I think, just to twist it. There we go. Okay. And again, the same question of the model. Can you look through the grid? Because if she can look through the grid, I'm sure that she's in the hotspot. If she has to look up.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it. Cool. That's German. Cool. Okay. Let's meter. And of course, the problem is I'm metering pretty low, and her hotspot is actually high. So what I have to tell her is, can you squint over that? No, move. Okay, perfect. Stand in that position again. So I'm using F4. And let's hope that works. There we go. Put the camera on F4. And now you can see that it gives a totally different look. if it fires, of course. Oh, if something doesn't fire, take it off and put it back on again. There we go. And now we have a little bit more vignetting. Now, if I move away a little bit, or in other words, zoom out, I really can maximize this effect. That's nice. That's really cool. Can you hold your arms in front of your body like that? That's nice. Wow. And I want really powerful hair in front of your face, like really like this. Yes, yes, really messy. That's cool. Nice. Chin up just a little bit. Awesome. Close your eyes and chin up all the way. Nice. Really love this shot. Okay, and we have another question. Yes, Brian.
Can you use colored gel for that grip to make other effects?
Yes, you can use color gels on this setup. They have a really cool system to connect the color gels. So yes, that works. And you can use color gels also on your studio strokes, of course. So color gels are really cool. And in the next episode of Digital Classroom, we will actually use color gels. But today I want to keep it a little bit simple, just to make sure that we get all the quirks out. Kinks. Can you look through the grid?
Yeah.
Okay, I should remeter. I don't, because I want to save a little bit of time. Okay, can you look that way, please? And I should have remetered. This is why you should remeter, guys, because now you see a crap image coming in. And now you will see an image coming in that's almost okay. You have to open up. And this looks a little bit unprofessional, don't you think so? And as soon as I meter, the first image that comes in is actually pretty cool. That's a nice shot. Wow. Can you do one more thing for me? Can you look that way? And as soon as I say yes, you turn around very violently with your hairs. And watch out that you don't slam your head against the wall. 1, 2, 3, go. Oh, stay in the light. 1, 2, 3, go. And chin up while you're doing that. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, now I have to change my light a little bit. I know that sees too much in front, so I will change my light. And I have a very narrow beam to work with, so this is pretty tricky. 1, 2, 3, go. There we go. One more. 1, 2, 3, go. That's nice. Wow, now we have it. You have a really cool shot. Okay, now let's say you want a little bit more control. You like the grid, but you think it's a little bit too narrow. You like the flash bender, but you think it's a little bit too wide. Guys, come on, don't be so difficult. Well, actually, there is a solution for that too. Can you give me the strip light? Yes, you heard it correctly, strip light. And actually, there's a strip light with a grid, because they want to make Frank happy. And I love grids. So we're going to open this one. There we go. And this is actually, believe it or not, this is the big flash bender, but we used an attachment on it, which is very easy to mount, and it's make it into a grid with a strip. That's a tongue breaker. It's a grid on a strip, or a strip with a grid. But anyway, it's cool. Just let's call it cool. You aim the head up of the stroke to make sure that it aims upwards. And you connect it the same way you normally do the flash bender, because it is a flash bender. It's the same device. It's just with an extra attachment. There we go. And now I have a very, very nice strip light with a grid. Now I can really steer my light. There we go. Let's place it close to my model and create something a little bit cool. Nice. Of course, we changed modifiers, so we have to meter. Okay. 4.08, that's almost f5.6. So we go down one click from 5.6, so to f5. Again, your light meter is set in full f-stops, your camera in third f-stops. So I go to 5.6 and one click down, f5. Okay, can you look that way? First, we'll do it flat and give you the quality of light. Nice. Nose a little bit more that way, eyes towards me. That's cool. Flat quality of light, pretty cool. But if I move, I can control my contrast. Very harsh or ultra harsh. You could create something really nice. Now, if you want it really cool, Angela, can you help me out? I want you to create a fog. So, I will focus on the eyes of my model. Wait a minute, wait a minute. Look that way. Angela, are you ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Really nice. And now look at this. Without using a smoke machine, we actually have smoke. Now, what did she do? She just breathed on my lens. Like, that's it. So if you're in a real move to play a little bit with your assistant, let them breathe on your lens. And you get this really nice faded out effect. Okay, so that's the Rogue system, which I absolutely love. And they also have the gels. But a guy or a girl asked me about a multiple light setup. And before we do the retouching, I have 10 minutes left for this. So we're going to do a multiple light setup in 5 minutes and take the shot. You change very quickly into something classical. You make sure that we have a black background. You make sure that the cameras are right. And I will take a little bit of a drink and set up my lights. So we'll be back in about, well, 3 minutes or so. But we'll keep the cameras running. So if you have any questions, just ask them and Brian will connect the questions to me. Brian, are there any questions at the moment? Are there any compliments? No compliments. Come on, guys. Keep the compliments coming. I love those. So, quick drink. And we're going to change the studio to a black background so you see everybody working now. And we're going to use 2 strips, 1 on each side. And, of course, a beauty dish with a grid. Okay, let's see where we can find the 2 grids. And of course, I help out a little bit. That's the kind of guy I am, helping out. Those walls are pretty cool, right? You can move them around in the studio. And we have wallpaper on them. So that's really nice, because at that point, we can actually create different kinds of walls for different kinds of sets. And we can even connect them to each other. Oh, we have a compliment. Okay. So we have 2 strip lights, which we will be using as accent lights on the model's face. Oh, can you turn them on in the power? That's awesome. Yes. Really nice. And let's go here. Oh, nice.
Wow. I'm in the Netherlands in September. Maybe I can do a visit.
If somebody's in the Netherlands, make sure you email me and we can always work something out. Oh. They don't know what's going on behind the screens. We're shouting at each other and being bad. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, now for this shot, I actually want you on a bar stool, if that's possible, because I want you to be really in the same location constantly. So we're going to pick one up. As you can see, we do what you guys ask. This was not planned, but we'll do it anyway. Okay, let's move this one a little bit back. What I want is 2 accent lights on the side of her face, making her look beautiful, which of course she already is. And let's do this one all the way up. There we go. Sit down. Sit. Nice. And nice. Okay. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up everything one-on-one, meaning F11, 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 or F8, F8, I don't care, as long as it's one-on-one. And then I'm going to show you guys some tricks with this. Okay. Really nice. Let me see, I need an extra sky port. It's already in my pocket. First, I'm going to set up the main light. 8.06. Let's go to F11. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I'm on F11 on my main light. The beauty of this is the main light. Now, the problem is, and probably you guys already saw this, that one is also affecting my metering. So how should you meter that? Very simple. Turn this one off. Sometimes the solutions are really, really simple. Turn that one off, block this one. 8.07. 1, 2, 3. There we go, F11. Now turn this one off and first set this one. F11. That one can still stay on. We're going to use this one. Going to use an accent. Oh. F11.2. So we take 2 off of those. And now we have our main light F11. We have everything F11. Okay, Brian, we have a question. Yes. 2 questions. Wow.
Why one grid and the other without?
Because I don't have a grid for the other one. Okay, why one with the grid and one without? Very simple, we don't have a grid for the other one. But in the end, with this setup, it doesn't matter. Now, what is the ratios? I don't work with ratios. I have to be really honest with you guys. I will stand in the camera. I will be really honest with you guys. If you think in ratios, you will also limit yourself to those ratios. So I have to be on a 1-on-1 ratio. I have to be on a 1-on-2, 1-on-3. I just look at what I like. And if I see what I like, that's what I will use. That's the ratio I'm using. If I have to recreate something, then I will actually meter. And I will call my main light always the 0. And the other ones will be the +02, +02, or whatever. It doesn't matter. As long as I can recreate it. So I will meter it, and then I will write down on the exit values what the settings are. But I don't use ratios as I need to be on a 2-on-1 ratio, because that's incredibly limiting. Because sometimes you want to be just on a 1.02 ratio. Okay, let's do one very quickly. Can you look into the light? And I will do the first one is wrong. Oh, I have to turn on the sky port, of course. Works a lot better. There we go. So we have a very flat light. We have 2 accents. It's all 1-on-1 and it looks very, very boring. It's a very flat image. It doesn't appeal to me at all. And I go like, what am I doing wrong? There must be something that I'm doing wrong. Maybe look straight at me. And then at one point you wake up and you know there is something wrong with the lighting setup. It's too directional. It's too flat. I don't want flat lighting. I want lighting that's interesting. So let's just turn this one off and let's see what happens. So I'm now only using my accents. Can you look a little bit that way? That's pretty cool. If you look at the image now, you go like, that's interesting. But we actually need a little bit more. What I need is a snoot. And in between, I will answer a question. Can you get me the snoot, Angela, please? Yes, Brian, there's a question.
Other than durability, do you know any differences between the different brands of light modifiers?
Okay, if I see any difference in light, in durability, yes. Durability, yes. The ELCs, the RXs, etc. Those lights are incredibly durable. Durable means they will not break easily. But also in light quality. I've worked on location with certain brands. I won't mention any names. But let me put it this way. Brand A actually gave me a free Rogue machine, a smoke machine, as soon as I started shooting in series. In other words, there was smoke coming out of the strobe. Brand B gave me one exposure on f11, a second exposure on f8.7, a second exposure on f11.3. And brand C gave me different color temperatures. The big brands will do pretty well, but don't buy too cheap, because you can buy a whole setup for 199 euros. Just be honest, guys. For 199 euros, you can buy 3 strobes, 4 softboxes, 6 stands, and a free assistant for free. It doesn't work that way. Quality will cost money. And in the case of Elinchrom, the D-lights are pretty good. But as soon as you go to the BRXs, you get a very durable lighting setup. Now, talk a little bit about buying your first strobe set, right? A lot of people will go like, you know what, I first buy the Chinese brand. And I don't want to say that Chinese brands are bad, but you know what I mean, like the really cheap strobes. I will buy those first, and then I will buy Elinchrom's Profoto, Hensel, or whatever. Realize that as soon as you buy a strobe brand, you also buy their softboxes. And those softboxes have certain mounts. This is an Elinchrom mount. Now, let's say you invest 199 euros in your first kit. You buy a softbox, that's 300 euros. You buy a Chimera softbox because you can get a special speed ring for your system. That's another 600. And you start building, and then you go to the real strobes, Profoto, Elinchrom, or whatever. And you have to buy everything again. So if you want to step in, save a little bit more money, and get, for example, the D-lights from Elinchrom. The D-light 1, doesn't matter. The D-light 1 is cheap. It's 100 watts in the studio. That's more than enough. And then build from that, because then every modifier you buy will work on the D-light 1, but also on the ELCs of the BRXs. Can you hold this while I change? And by the way, I learned this the hard way. I also bought very cheap strobes because I didn't want to invest money, but maybe I don't like strobes. And then I had to throw out everything and buy everything new. And that was a huge amount of money. And I had a lot of accessories. Okay, now let's see what we can do with this one. This is way cooler. And now we have to remeter this, of course. So I will turn that one off, because this is very directional light. So I'll turn this one off. And I will just meter this. And I only want it on her eyes and a little bit on her side of her face. There we go. So I have to meter really close. 4.02. This eats a lot of power. So let's put it on full. And just let's see how far I can get with this. 11.3. That's about it. So 1, 2. This now is on F11. And I'm going to actually lower these a little bit lower, 1 stop. Because I already did this light setup before. And I know what I like. And I want to save a little bit of time. But I did want to show you guys this because I promised. Okay, there we go. So I can still shoot on F11. And now you will see that the snoot makes a totally different image. Look that way. Towards the light, please. Nice. Really love this. It gives you a really classical beauty shot, like the old school, like the old movies, like the Fresnels, which we actually also have in the studio, but a really nice, intense look. Can you do something with your hands? That's cool. Nice chin down. Yes, there we go. Eyes towards the light. Nice. And we do one from here. Chin up. There we go. Awesome. Change your hands to slightly, yes, there we go. I want the hands to be a little bit smaller. Awesome. The other hand also there. Nice. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, so we're going to go into the retouching part. Oh, by the way, that one shot, do that again. Aim a little bit lower with your face. There we go. There was a little bit too much light on her nose and not on her eyes. This is better. Eyes up. And I want a little bit more cat's light. There we go. This is awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go into the retouching part. So the girls are going to break down everything, and I'm going to switch to my main screen, and I'm going to show you the selection process and also the retouching. And that actually means that everybody else is now allowed to leave the studio, or if you want, you can stay and watch. So here we go. Okay, I see 2 more questions, and I will now first switch to main screen only. That's a cool main screen. There we go. Okay, the question: for outdoor shoots, do you prefer the Profoto B1s or the Quadras by Elinchrom, and what is the difference in duration? Well, I have to be honest with you guys. I tried the Profotos, I believe the B1s, the big ones, and I like the idea. The problem was that I didn't get the power output they said. Like they claimed they're 500 watt seconds, and they weren't. I had a Quadra there, and it gave me a lot more power. And also, it varied a little bit in output. So one was on f8, the other one was on 8.3. So I like the concept, but somehow the continuity was a little bit off for me. Okay, the first thing we do now is in my workflow. I will show you the workflow in Capture One. I will select all my files because I did something wrong at the start. And I will rename those files. Let's rename images. And how do I call them? Well, I will actually call them Rosa, May 27th. And reset counter. Now, this also works in Lightroom, of course, but I use Capture One. Oh, don't. FaceTime sometimes does this. Okay, after a session, you don't have a backup in the card. You back up now. Yes, Pedro. Normally, I back up straight after the photo shoot. Oh, don't worry, Johan, with the questions. That's why we're here for. Okay, so the first things I will do is I will do edit, select none, deselect all, and I will just go to the start. Now, the first thing is I'm really rough. I will just deselect, I will just kill everything that's not okay. I look for expression and power, and if I see an image that doesn't have that, it's gone. So I love that one. That one is also cool. Nice, nice. That's awesome. It's without a doubt an awesome shot. Don't like that one. That one is cool. That one is better. No, that Mama Smurf. As you can see, those shots will be taken out because those are cool, but they're not uber cool. And we only want uber cool images. Now make sure that before you do this, your model didn't see the images, because sometimes the model will like an image and you don't like the image. Make sure that you take it out before. Okay, that's nice. That's okay, but not good enough. No, I don't like the feet here. This is okay, but not good enough. Yes, that's nice. That's really nice, so you can take that one out. So this is my selection process. As you can see, it goes really fast. Now, am I afraid that I delete something that I do like? Yes, but I can always go back, because there's always the trash can. And let's see. I'm deleting a lot of images, as you can see. Now, a lot of people say, like, oh, you professional guys, you shoot a lot of images and you never shoot a bad one. You see how many I'm deleting? That's how many bad images we shoot. But you never see them because we delete them. I love that one. That one is very commercial. That's cool. That's nice. That's nice. That was a little bit too depressed, the black one. No, no. That was with the shutter speed. Remember, guys, when we talked about shutter speeds? I like the jumping ones. Like that one. That one is awesome. No, no, yes. That's cool. Look at the hairs. I like that one, but the expression is a little bit off, so I don't do that one. No, that's okay. A little bit of sexy. Nice, nice, but no. No, no, yes. As you can see, it goes really fast. I'm already almost through the selection process. And again, it's not a shame to throw away images. It's a shame to spend a lot of time on images you will never ever retouch because they do take space on your hard drive. That's nice. No, no. This was where we were experimenting before the flash benders. I think, yes. I like it, but I don't see the eyes, so they are out. Nice. Too dark in the eyes. I like it here. No, too dark. No catch lights, so they are out. Too dark. There we go. I like this one. No, droopy eyes. Droopy eyes, we call it when they have actually eyes that are half closed. I like the roughness in her hair here. I like the expression, really cool. This was where we were changing the light to make her appear in the light. I love this one. No, yes, no, okay. Like this one, no. And here we went to the more flatter images. High contrast, love this one. This one is slightly better. Don't like the hand in this one, and that one, and that one. So I asked her to make her hand a little bit smaller. And I did it for a reason. The camera doesn't see any depth. So as soon as you don't see depth, make sure that you make something that's in front of your camera appear bigger, and something that's further away actually appear smaller. So in this case, when I take the hands like this, they look pretty big because they're in front of the camera more than the face because we're shooting up. So take that out and then make the hand appear a little bit smaller by tilting it and moving it further to the back. And I will say hi to my model very quickly. Rosa, thank you very much. And you were awesome.
Bye-bye.
She says bye-bye. There we go. Now we have 2 cat slides. That's the one I like. Okay, now one trick. I renamed all my images before, right? Now, don't do that because your client will actually get the images and go like, hey, Frank, where's number 101? I don't know. It was a bad image. Probably I took it out. So if you want to make sure that you keep friends with your models, do it very quickly. Rename them again. And now rename them in the proper order. So now your images are all okay. So if your model wants a different image, it doesn't matter. They're all great. So if she chooses another one, you will just retouch that one. So rename, proceed. And now they're all in order. Okay, so how do I select the images I wanna use? So first I do edit, deselect all. I will just go through the images. And I do it really fast. An image really has to jump out to me. And I really like this one, so we'll give it 5 stars. As you can see, I go really fast. Oh, I like that one more. That one I need. I love the expression. Okay, let me see. I liked the jumping one here. I actually like that one too, but I like the jumping ones more. And I don't want 6 images from one set. You can, of course, use 6 images from one set. The problem you run into is people will remember the best image from that set. And if you have an image that's worse, people will only remember that worst image. So make sure you don't. Okay, I have a question. You don't use modeling lights to full power to reduce the size of the pupil of the eyes. Yes, Pedro, you can do that. It's no problem. We didn't do it now, but normally, yes. Also like this one, I don't like the hand that much, but I like the image. In that case, you can clone the hand out, but just leave the image out because we have enough great images. This one is pretty cool, but not cool enough. We really want that high impact image. Like this one. Okay, let me see. I want one of these. Okay, I love that one. Okay, now I already sorted on name, and now I sorted on actually on my stars, as you can see here. So selected a few images. So let's see if I still support my choice. I like that one more, the portrait. Now I do need to do my color balance. Now, as you can see in the start, I used the color checker, but later on I didn't anymore. And what I do is I know my Elinchrom strobes are pretty stable. So what I can do is I will do my color balance on this one and do adjustments, copy, and apply it to all. But of course, when you do a professional photo shoot, you should do it every single time you change your lighting setup. You also shoot a new color checker because you don't want to run the risk of. Okay, So I'm going to connect my tablet, because with tablets we actually do some retouching. Now I hear you guys going like, Frank, you only have 45 minutes left. How the heck are you going to do all that retouching? Well, I probably have time to spare, because retouching shouldn't take long. And I'm going to show you the real, no stories, no BS, how we retouch. Now I see that I messed up here, and it was with my exposure. Normally when you use a light meter, you shouldn't do what I'm doing now. But I can't help this in this case. Copy and apply. I need to brighten them just a little bit. The other ones are okay, but I already know what went wrong. There we go. Okay, so I'm using Capture One. Now in Lightroom, when you want to go to Photoshop, what you actually do is you do Command E for Photoshop, right? In Capture One, it doesn't work that way. You have to make recipes. You can find them here. And there's a recipe here called Frank to Photoshop. It uses TIFF 16 bits, uncompressed, ProPhoto, RGB, and opens up Photoshop CC 2014. What it does is when I press Command D, it will actually make a TIFF 16 bits, uncompressed, ProPhoto, and opens up Photoshop exactly as it's being told there. Now, why don't I open RAW files in Photoshop, I hear you say? Very simple. Photoshop doesn't open RAW files. It opens up only it only opens up files that it's understanding, and RAW files it doesn't understand. But Frank, when I open up a RAW file in Photoshop, I see a RAW converter. That's correct. That's called Adobe Camera Raw. It's the same you find in Lightroom. And Adobe Camera Raw is really cool. It works pretty fast. You can do a lot. But imagine this, and I always compare it to cooking or playing an instrument. Let's call playing an instrument. If I give you a guitar and you can play guitar, will you play the same notes in the same order that I do? No, of course not. You will give it your own twist, but they are the same notes, they're the same order, and still it sounds different, right? Because you are you and I am I. Now with RAW conversion, it's about the same thing. You give a RAW conversion a bunch of zeros and ones. Those are actually the digital files, and it will create an image. Now I found out that Lightroom does it pretty well, but Capture One and DxO do it way better. Now for my fashion work and for my model work, when I shoot tethered, I shoot into Capture One. So it only makes sense for me to also use Capture One as my RAW converter. When I do travel photography, and if you guys would like, I can also do something with travel photography in the future or street, I will actually use DxO. And DxO is actually integrated into Lightroom nowadays. So you can slingshot between Lightroom and DxO. Now first look at the skin. Now, the skin is what a lot of people go like, okay, you really, really have to do skin work. Why? Go to 100% and just check how her skin looks. This is straight out of the camera. See, is already photoshopped inside, guys. You don't need any Photoshop on this skin. So don't do it. And why not do it? Because you will only make it look fake. Now, if you have a model that has bad skin, of course you do Photoshop. Now, what I do for Photoshop, and I still want to show you guys, of course, is I use something called frequency separation. I will create 2 layers, and I will call one layer, I will call skin. And I will use one layer, which I will call details. Now, the skin layer, I will blur with Gaussian blur, and of course not that high, but approximately, let's say, 8 pixels, 8.7. What I want is I want all the detail to be gone, but I just want to see that I still have a model. Okay. The top one, we will actually use a technique, and that's already in Photoshop, and it's called Apply Image. Now, I want it from the skin layer. What I actually want to do is I want to separate the detail from the tones. And I will call add or subtract. In this case, I will use subtract because that's already set up. And it will look like this. Normally, it works like this. You can always see that if we do this online, of course, it goes wrong. Ah, there we go. I don't know why it's happening. I think it lags a little bit due to the software that's all running in the back. There we go. Okay, so what happens here is you get some sort of a high frequency layer. So just press OK. And now I have to get those two in a folder. So you create a folder and you just drag those two in. There we go. Now you still see this stuff, right? Okay, so let's change this one to linear light. And now you see no difference between the original and the folder. So how do we proceed from here? The fun part is you now have a skin layer, and that skin layer only contains the blurred skin. Now, the main problem with retouching skin is often that there are color patches in the skin of the model. Like, for example, Rosa is a bad example because Rosa is actually pretty perfect. But sometimes you see all these colors over here and it just looks like a mess. Now, what I run is a filter called Elinchrom portraiture on this layer. And you can see it also on Rosa, by the way, what the difference is. Now, you have to make sure, and I created a preset for that, that you put everything on full power, sharpness down, and softness all the way up. You select the skin tones that you want to be affected, and you press OK. And now it will actually run Elinchrom portraiture, and you can see that it flattens out the image. You see this? This is before, this is after. But because I saved all my detail on a different layer, I still have the detail in. So now you can see the before and the after. And you can actually see that by using this very simple, fast technique, the image looks a lot better. Here it's a little bit rough around the edges, and here we already have that high quality image. Okay. Now I'm going to do something that will scare a lot of you guys, but you know, my retouching goes really fast. So I always do this because otherwise I forget to keep track. I always do, when I'm done with something, I do a flatten image. Very simple. But why did I use that different layer? Very simple. Let's go back. If you want to retouch stuff here, normally you would do a flatten image, of course, and you would retouch, right? The problem with the healing brush is it looks only at luminance and color. Now, if I look at this layer, as you can see in a moment, I only have detail. There's no color in there. So now when I do retouching of skin, ooh, that's a little bit big. Oh, no, that's my mistake. I have it on all layers, so let's set it on current layer. As you can see now, I can very quickly retouch skin without having to worry about anything else than detail. No color, no luminance, no color, no patches, only detail. And this makes retouching so much easier and faster. There we go. And don't make it too soft, right? We still want her to be a model and not a Barbie doll. There we go. Oh, take this one out. I don't like that. There we go. And now before and after. And when I don't explain stuff, I can actually do this in about 2-3 minutes. So you can have a high quality retouched image within a few minutes. Let's see on her front of her head. There we go. Now she has a little scar there. Okay, now I do a layer flatten image. And the only thing I now have to do is brighten up the eyes just a little bit. And normally, again, somebody asked, don't you use the modeling lights on full power? Yes, we normally can do that. But in this case, I like the pupils to be a little bit open. So I use the dots tool. I use it on highlights. And the only thing I do is I just dab around the iris. Just a little bit, not too much. And it just opens up the eyes. There we go. Now, one of the filters you see me using a lot on almost all my images is Intensify from MacFun. Now, Intensify really does what the name says. It intensifies the image. So let's see what we can do with this. It will make the image pop. And of course, when we want pop, we choose a filter called Poppy Drama 3. Now, this is a preset pack that I actually created myself, and you can buy online on my website. Now, let's do it without vignetting. There we go. Now, in between, let's talk a little bit about monitors. A lot of you guys will do their photo shoots with big, expensive cameras, big, expensive lenses. And then as soon as it comes to choosing your monitor, what do? You look at the pricing, right? And you look at like, nah, that monitor looks okay and it's cool for gaming, so it should be okay for retouching. No, it doesn't. You have to have monitors that are really good, aimed at photography. Now, big brands like ISO, NEC are already known in the market. Now, as you can see, this webinar was made possible by BenQ and Rogue. Now, why BenQ? Very simple. I would never, ever advise you guys something I don't stand behind, because then you don't trust me anymore, right? So I was very, very curious to see why BenQ wanted to send me a monitor to test out. And I can tell you why. They created something that's incredibly cool for a very nice price point. Now, BenQ was already known for very good monitors for gaming. And when they said to me, like, Frank, we want to send you a monitor. Do you want to test it out? It's a new monitor aimed at photographers. I was going like, okay, I will try it, of course. And I have to tell you guys, the monitor is amazing. It's a 99% Adobe RGB, as they say, and it has hardware calibration. Now, why is calibration so important? Every time you do an image, you retouch it, you tint the image, you want to make sure that the colors are correct and constant. So you want continuity. If you don't calibrate your monitor, you can never, ever have a continuous workflow. So make sure you calibrate your monitor. Now, what's the difference between ISO, BenQ, and, for example, the step-in brands? All the step-in brands, you have to calibrate with a separate color analyzer. That separate color analyzer isn't expensive. You can, for example, use an X-Rite or data color. I prefer the X-Rites myself. And that will all be very, very good. But the more expensive monitors, like the ISO and of course the BenQ, they will have a hardware option, meaning you calibrate straight in the monitor on a 14-bit LUT table. Now, for the guys that goes like, what? Let me just tell you this, it's better. And then you have proper colors. Now, why do I like the BenQ so much? It works together with my favorite X-Rite analyzers in the software. And you can use a spectrometer. I have an ISO next to it, and it has a built-in calibration set. That's the only way to calibrate it hardware. So, what's the problem, I hear you ask? Well, the analyzer that's used in the ISO is a tri-stimulus meter, meaning it's based on gels. Those gels will deteriorate over time. So if my monitor is 3 or 4 years old, will I still know that my calibration is correct? No. If you use a spectrometer, you can recalibrate it, or if you use a tri-stimulus meter, you can actually get a new one. So that's why I like the monitors better that use separate analyzers and software. And in the end, the BenQ is just a little bit cheaper than the ISO. And I have to be honest, I tried it out now for a week or two, and it's really, really impressive. The 24-inch is for sale now, and they will have a 27-inch probably during Q3. So make sure you check out BenQ. They really surprised me with their monitors. Okay, so let's see. We now have this filter on, before and after. And let's just paint the effect out a little bit on the skin because I don't like it that much. You go to a layer mask and you choose reveal all. Now you have a white piece of paper. You take your brush, you switch to black paint and lower the opacity, let's say to 50, 60%. And you just paint the effect out on the areas where you don't want it. Okay, this is on 60%. So if I lift my pen from the tablet and I do it again, I'm at 100%, or at 120 actually, but I don't think that will make any difference. There we go. So I like this better. There we go, before and after. And as you can see, it really makes the image pop. If you don't like it on a shirt that much, you can take it out there too. Now, some people will say, Frank, this is a really subtle effect. Yes, it is. You can make it much, much more pronounced, but I like it subtle. Okay, so now the next thing I always do in my workflow is I'm actually brought up as an analog photographer. I loved analog photography. I only did hobby stuff, but I loved analog photography. Now, I always tell people that in my mind, I'm of course a 99% digital photographer at the moment. But in my heart, I will always be a 100% analog photographer. I just love the way that analog looks. So I want to tint my images and I want to give them a special look. Now the software I use for that is actually Alien Skin Exposure 7 or DxO Labs Film Pack. Let's go for today for the Film Pack 5. You open it up. I just had an update, so I hope it does open. Yes, there we go. Never update before a live broadcast. And I will just do the clickety-click until I see what I like stuff. I will just go through my presets. And again, these presets are for sale via my website. And they're really cheap. I believe €7.50 for the whole pack. And I will just look for the presets that I like. And by the way, if you go to my website, you can also find discount codes for example, MacFun, Topaz, and all the other brands that we use. And I think I always go back to these red pops. And these actually are created to simulate a certain effect I once got with overaged film that I tried to recreate. So compare before and after. As you can see, it's very subtle. And again, it's not in the, let's go Instagram on an image. I hate that. Go very, very subtle. As you can see here, it just makes the difference. It just makes the image pop. And some people won't even see that you use the filter. Now you see some white spots. Ooh, that's big. You see some white spots on our code. Just take that out with your healing brush and make sure that the images look nice. Cool, cool enough. Oh, there we have one. Okay. File close. And of course, save. And go back to capture one. Take the second one, third one, but I want to do something with, let's go for this one. Command D, because I still have the same preset. And as I already told you, I don't have to do anything with the skin, except make it a little bit more smooth. Now, I don't want to do the whole retouching again, so what do? Because you want to save time, right? You can write an action, and the action is actually called frequency separation. Now, what is an action? In Photoshop, you can do several actions. You can actually record something. So let's say I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm doing so. I record this, and the next time I press play, it does everything I did. So let's try that. Press play. Now we have a dialog. Continue. Please set the blur. Okay. 8.5, that's okay. Press OK. And it will continue. And oh my, look at this. It created everything I need. So I now only go to this low frequency layer. I do filter. And I just simply run my image nomic portraiture on the same settings as before. Because it's the same model. I press OK, and I'm done. So we don't need to go through the whole 5 minutes of retouching. I hear you guys laughing like, man, I retouch for 10 hours. Yeah, sure, of course. But you can do it in 5 minutes. But I don't want it in all the image, like in the hair. So I do a layer mask, hide all. Now I will zoom in, and I will actually only paint it in the areas where I need it. So for example, on her arms, I know that models like to have really nice arms. Oh, wait a minute. There we go, 100%. So paint it in here. And again, the effect on Rosa is very, very subtle because he doesn't have a lot of problems in her skin. But if you have a model like what we sometimes call a Modelzilla, which is actually a little bit more problematic, you can actually do it much faster this way. Okay, layer flatten image. And again, this is not a Photoshop course. I just want to show you what I do. And you see that my workflow is actually the same over and over. So I'm now going to use the MacFun Intensify filter. And after this, I'm going to show you something really cool, by the way. So stay on. Poppy drama, no. And here you see that it really enhances the background, but it does very little for the skin of the model. So I'm going to use a different filtering at the moment. I'm actually going to do a hide all layer. So I'm going to paint the effect in. So before I did a reveal all and painted it out, now I'm going to do a layer mask, hide all. And I'm just going to take a big brush with a low opacity, let's say almost 60%. I'm just going to paint the effect in the areas where I want it. So I don't need it in the shadow, so I just let it fade out a little bit. That's the nice thing about using a tablet. If you press harder or softer, you can actually create different effects. And as long as I don't lift my pen up, it won't add. If you don't like it there, no problem. You press X and you just paint the effect out. I like it here, I think, on the material. So press X, and yes, that I love. So I'm going to paint it in here. Really nice. Okay, this is good enough for me. I do a layer flatten image. And I always do this. Don't ask me why, because some people say you can never go back. I know. Then I will just retouch again. And there we go. And we do the same thing again. We go to DxO, Film Pack, and we're going to give it its look. And after this, we're going to do the older retouch style. What is the model of the monitor? It's the BenQ PG series. If you look on their website, you can actually see that they only have one monitor at the moment that's aimed for photography, and that's the one. The PG24, I believe, from the top of my head. But I'm very bad with numbers. I won't forget faces, but numbers, oh my. I don't want to make it black and white. I just want to make it probably, again, the red pop. There we go. Love this one. Make it a little bit lighter. And of course, you can go into this and modify every setting you want, including tone curves and whatever. So let's say you want a little bit more tone curve in here, maybe a little bit more in the area here. So, and do a compare. And again, it's very subtle, but it's just the way that I work. Okay, let's make a real classic portrait shot. So file close, save. And go back to capture one. And let's take this one. And Command D. I hope you guys are having fun as much as I do, because this is really fun teaching this way. Okay. Let's see. Now this, of course, needs to be black and white. And why does it need to be black and white? Very simple, because we want to have a really high impact image. Now, there's a lot of black and white conversions out there, and DxO does pretty well, but when I really want black and white, I always go to MacFun Tonality Pro. Now, Tonality Pro is actually, I think, the most perfect black and white conversion on the market at this time. Let me put it this way, the one that I like the most. I created some presets with this one, and the one I like for the old vintage portraits is actually this one. Now, what it does is very hard to explain, but it gives a certain edge to the image, a certain oomph. Excuse my expression for that one, but I always call it oomph. Now, what I have is a lens blur in there, and I will place the center on the eyes. Now, I don't believe in this. Just turn it all the way up, because then you can see that we use lens blur. No, I don't believe in this, turn it all the way down, but just somewhere in between. It's all in the subtle things. Don't overdo retouching, because then you look like an Instagrammed image. The radius, I like a little bit lower. I just want it to be fading out over her fingers. Maybe add a little bit of glow to give it that really old look. The only problem we now have is that it's a little bit hot on her face. So first add some contrast and then take away the highlights. And if that doesn't do enough, try it with the midtones and eventually finish it off with your exposure. There you go. You can use adaptive also. Go a little bit down. Okay, go back to your highlights. And we want this area to be very bright, like they did in the old days. Sometimes just too much. There we go. Okay. You can add clarity, but I only use a little bit. Structure I don't use in this shot. And let's see, you can also play with the red channel. This is actually the skin, very effective on the skin. Don't want it too much. Just fade it out. And then you go back to glow and you finish it off. And you just glow it out. What you now do is you just fade out the areas here. Now, this is a little bit of, I don't know if the expression is right, tinkering around, but it really helps you to create that perfect image. Press apply. Now, sometimes it will happen that if you see the final image in Photoshop, it looks slightly different. So always prepare to do a little bit of retouching in Photoshop again. But with MacFun, that's pretty good. It's processing, and remember, because I used a blur, it will take a little while to process. Now, again, for guys just tuning in, I hope you're not just tuning in. This is a test episode of Digital Classroom. It's something I have wanted to be doing for a long, long time. And thanks to the partnering up with BenQ and Rogue, Expo Imaging, and of course, Elinchrom, we were now actually able to do it. And we will be doing these 10 times a year. So this is the test. And later we will do, of course, the final versions. And they will have themes like set building, etc. But today we just went through some stuff. Okay, file close. Okay, save. We'll do one more. And then I will show you what we do with social media and how you can make it really effective and work for you guys. So we already retouched these. So I'm going to remove those. So I keep track of what I did. Okay, let's retouch this one. I really love this one too. Now, because she moved her head, I actually gave her a little bit more space on top. Now, normally I will crop in camera. I won't crop in Photoshop because I don't want to do a lot of work when I'm done with my photo shoot. In this case, I have to, because otherwise maybe I would have cropped here, and that's wrong. Go to your crop tool and make sure you use the original ratio. And just close it down. And I like a really aggressive crop like this. Press enter. There we go. I love this. Do the same thing, frequency separation. And again, her skin doesn't need a lot of retouching, but I like the smoothing out effect. So I go to the low frequency and I just run my filter image nomic portraiture. And there's nothing else you need to do with her skin. With other skin, again, you have to do a lot more work, guys. Rosa is really good with her skin. So normally with a model, and probably in the next digital classroom, we will have another model. And all my models are great, but some models will have a little bit less perfect skin. And then you can see what we do. So layer mask, hide all. And you see that I don't even zoom in. I just know what I want to do, and I just do it. And some people will zoom in to 400% to do this kind of stuff. Don't, because the filter already made a selection of the skin, so the eyes aren't affected. And if you really want to be nitpicking, well, go into 100% and just clean it off. But normally, it's good enough to do it like this. Now, when I do other retouching, like composites, I zoom into 400%. I keep all my layers, etc., because I'm really bad with compositing. That's what we leave the experts like Lynn Dewis or Joel Grimes. Those guys are awesome with compositing, and I don't even come close. So that's when I really save everything. And with this stuff, I know what I'm doing. So if I mess up, I will just go back and do it again. Okay, there we go. Okay, this one I want a little bit more aggressive. Now, when I want aggressive tinting, I love using alien skin exposure, because that's just a little bit more aggressive. And let's, oh, look at this. It's already here. So what I do is I will just go again, clickety-click until I see what I like stuff. I just go with my pointer over the examples until I see what I like. And again, in this one, I want a little bit more aggression in the retouch. Oh, I love that one. But I want a little bit more. I gave them all these weird names like warm vintage or whatever. I just give them names, you know, that I can find them back. And if I like something like I did it once on a fairy tale like image, I will give it the name fairy tale. Make sure that you name your presets the way that you can find them back. I love this one. Okay, now what I want is a little bit of structure over the image. So you can use overlays or lighting effects. Let's go for the lighting effects in this case. Let me see. Can we for further episodes, so you don't get any more surprises, ask you to show us something, like use the setup with an umbrella in the studio? Yes, of course. You can always email me and ask me questions. There's no problem at all. I won't bite. So just give it a little bit of a lighting effect. Now let me see which lighting effect I like. Maybe this. And just edit really subtle, only in the corners. And just get it out. There you go. And I love the subtle stuff here. There we go. So this is pretty cool. And you can actually randomize it, or you can do other stuff. And for now, just leave it out, because in the end, I don't like it anyway. So that's me. Sometimes I think, yeah, I want to do this. And then I look at the image and go like, nah, not. So before and after, let's make it a little bit more contrasty. So we're going to add contrast. There we go. And maybe protect the highlights just a little bit and add a little bit shadow detail. Nice. Add a little bit of clarity. Oh, no, that's too much. And use the saturation. Okay. And we have a before and after. Okay. And press apply. And in the end, we didn't end up with anything aggressive, which I actually said I would do. But as you can see, you can always change your mind in between. So there we go. You go layer, you flatten your image, and you store the image. And you press close and save. Okay, as soon as you saved, we go back into Capture One, and I'm going to show you what we actually do with the images. Now, I did my retouching in Capture One, and that actually means that it stores the TIFFs somewhere. Now, it stores it on my hard drive in a folder called Retouch Capture One. Now, sometimes, and I actually mean all the time, I tint my images in Photoshop, but I will also tint my images later very, very fast in Capture One. Now, sometimes I need it, sometimes I don't. So let's say I do want it. So there are certain presets here in Capture One called Frank. And I can go through these. And as you can see, they're actually aimed towards my workflow with DxO. So I have my DxO workflow set up, and these are actually finishing them off. I can do it in Capture One better than I do it in DxO, because now I really get the look that I want. So I'm actually doing it twice. It's a little bit weird to explain, but just bear with me. Okay, we're gonna do this one too. I'm just gonna look which one I like. And I don't do this all the time, but I just do it sometimes. I have these setups again exactly the way that I want it. There we go. Let's select these. Love this one, the bluish. Okay, and the red, the black and white, I know for certain I want to keep that way because I already did that. This class will be for free. Yes, these classes will be for free because thanks to BenQ and Rogue Expo Imaging, we can make these classes for free. So yes. Okay, this one I like the way it is, so I will drag this one into my final folder. Now these I actually have to retouch again. Don't really retouch, but I have to process them again. So what I do is I will go into my recipes and I will change my recipe into Frank TIFF. Frank TIFF will make a 16-bit TIFF uncompressed pro photo, and it will place it in the final folder. So I will actually press process, and now it does it. So it will make a process, and now in my final folder, you will find all the images that I just retouched, and a lot from other sessions, by the way, that I see now. This is, by the way, the stuff that we shoot during workshops, and we'll be doing this stuff also during feature episodes of Digital Classroom. But today we kept it simple because, again, this is our test run. So we have the 4 images here. Now, the cool thing about Capture One is you can do different recipes. Now, one of the recipes that I actually use is called Internet. Now, what Internet does is it makes a JPEG on 1250 on the longest side, sRGB, and it copies it to a folder called Internet Klaar, Internet Ready. And it will place my logo, especially, in the right place where I want it. Now, the cool thing about Capture One is you can actually select different recipes. For example, I can make a TIFF, the internet version, an untitled, and for example, 4K, 180p, whatever I want. I can create them all and I can select them all. And now when I press process, it will do all those processing at once. So in Lightroom, you have to go first export to this, then export to that, then do this. Now, when we do video during our workshops, we actually film in 4K. So when Anouk edits the images into the videos, he needs 4K images. I need, for internet, 1250 longest side, but I also need my TIFF to store on my hard drives, right? So what I will do is I will tell Capture One, do these 3, make a 4K image, make a full-size TIFF for my storage, and make an internet version. I just select all 3 recipes, press process, and I'm done. So in Capture One, that's a little bit easier. Okay, press process. I want to very quickly show you what we can do with the digital social media. I don't know if it already did. Let's quit Photoshop. And here we have Internet Klaar. Yes, it did it. Let's drag this one here. Okay, and now I want to show you guys how we use social media. Okay, I have to start up a new, how do you call it? Window for Safari. No, one moment. And go to Google. Okay. I am via satellite, so it's a little bit slower. So we go to Frank. Now what I will do is I will make a new post. And let's call it some first samples from today's test episode of the digital classroom model Rosa. And I will add photos, select all my images and drop them here. And there we go. Again, this is a little bit slower than normal, but our upload is actually pretty fast via the satellite compared to our DSL. And add. I always skip this. This is what the girls in the office actually do. They will add text to the images and share. Okay. So how does it end up on Facebook? How does it end up on Twitter and on all the other social media parts? Well, this is where I use a filter, a program called Magenta River. Magenta River is actually a software and it's free. Hey, I'm Dutch, so we love free software. And what it does, it will cross-post your images. Now, you can also use if this, then that, of course. But when you use Magenta River, one of the things that I like about it is that it keeps the original quality of your files and your albums. So you just go to my account and you just tell it where to post it. And this is the free version. You also can, of course, how do you call it? You can also pay for it. And then it does it, I believe, in 10 seconds or whatever. In this case, it takes 10 minutes. But I don't care. It's free. So it's awesome for that. So I'm now in my dashboard. And I will actually tell it, do Facebook from Google+. Do my Twitter from Google+. Do my other Facebook, the fan page, from Google+. Studio FD is another website we run, but it isn't connected. And of course, we use Flickr also from Google+. So that way, within 10 minutes, everything is actually uploaded to all my social media. Now, when I'm at home, I have enough bandwidth. I don't have to pay for anything, so that's cool from home. When I'm on the road and I take a picture, I only share it on Google+, and Google+ cross-posts it to all the other media. Okay, guys. So this was the first episode of the Digital Classroom. I hope you guys liked it. If you like it, let me know. Let me know what went wrong. Let me know how the image quality was. Let me know if there were any technical issues. This was the test episode. The next time we'll go into smoke and gels and set building and whatever. And we'll make it a little bit more interesting, even more interesting. So this was more technical. If everything went okay, it will be stored on YouTube and you can watch it back. On my side, I would like to thank you all very, very much for watching. I would like to thank Rogue for their continuous support. And of course, BenQ, because it matters that they really help us out. Because without those guys, you really wouldn't have a digital classroom. So thank you very much for watching. I will press stop broadcast now. And I hope you enjoyed it. Let everybody know online that you saw it. And again, email me if you have any questions. So see you guys. Bye-bye.